Kasi di ba ako nakaboy eh.
Let us put ourselves in the holy presence of God.
Session resume, Majority Leader.
Speaker, may I move that we recognize the Honorable Julian Jambaroda to lead the invocation for this week.
Let us put ourselves in the holy presence of God. Open our hearts to Him. Dear God, we thank you for gathering us today. We pray that you continue to keep us, our loved ones, and the Filipino family safe from the ongoing pandemic. Ask that you look kindly upon those who are afflicted by it and heal them through your grace and mercy. Father, we come to you seeking for your divine guidance as we tackle issues of national and local importance. We ask for your grace and wisdom as we strive to look for solutions for these challenges. Lend us your wisdom as we endeavor to formulate concrete plans that will be of benefit to the voiceless and marginalized. Teach us to be stewards of your creation. Gabayan niyo po kami sa aming pagpapasya, Panginoon. Nawa ang aming puso at isipan ay magpasya ayon sa kapakanan at ikabubuti ng taong bayan o ng nakararami. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Majority Leader.
Speaker, I move that we take up the additional reference of business and may I request the Secretary General to read the titles of the bills and resolutions as well as communications and committee reports.
Secretary General so directed.
Additional reference of business, bills on first reading, House Bill Number 8600, renewing the franchise of Exodus Broadcasting Corporation Incorporated by Representative Garcia Pablo Jan.
To the Committee on Legislative Franchises.
House Bill Number 8601, establishing the Uswag Iloilo City Hospital in Iloilo City, Iloilo, by Representative Baronda.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill Number 8602, declaring Paracale, Camarines Norte as an ecotourism zone by Representative Talyado.
The Committee on Tourism.
House Bill Number 8603, declaring Maligaya Falls in Barangay Submakin, Labo, Camarines Norte an ecotourism zone.
To the Committee on Tourism.
House Bill Number 8604, declaring Kapalonga, Camarines Norte as an ecotourism zone by Representative Talyado.
To the Committee on Tourism.
House Bill Number 8605, declaring Jose Panganiban, Camarines Norte as an ecotourism zone by Representative Talyado.
The Committee on Tourism.
House Bill Number 8607, mandating the submission of a greening plan as a requirement for the issuance of a building permit by Representative C. Alvarado.
To the Committee on Local Government.
House Bill Number 8608, mandating public telecommunications entities to disclose service coverage data to the public by Representative C. Alvarado.
To the Committee on Information and Communications Technology.
House Bill Number 8609, imposing forfeitures on the overhead charges due to unintended or unannounced utility service interruption by Representative Almario.
To the Committee on Trade and Industry.
House Bill Number 8610, establishing the Philippine Banana Research Institute by Representative Almario.
The Committee on Agriculture and Food.
House Bill number 8611, mandating the installation and use of gray water treatment systems facilities in buildings by Representative Abueg Zaldivar.
To the Committee on Ecology.
House Bill number 8612, providing for the separation of Sugod Senior High School in Barangay Sugod, Bacon District, Sorsogon City, Sorsogon from Lydia D. Martinez Memorial High School, converting it into an independent senior high school by Representative Escudero.
The Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill number 8613, declaring Kurhanan Falls in Barangay Igsoro, Bugasong, Antique, an ecotourism site by Representative Legarda.
To the Committee on Tourism.
House Bill number 8614, establishing a free COVID-19 vaccination program for OFWs by Representative C. Alvarado.
The Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs.
House Bill number 8615, providing for a moratorium on OFW loans payment during pandemic and other emergencies by Representative C. Alvarado.
The Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs.
House Bill number 8616, converting the Northern Negros State College of Science and Technology in Sagay City, Negros Occidental to be known as the State University of Northern Negros by Representative Cueva.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill number 8617, institutionalizing the Securing, Manufacturing, Revitalization, and Transformation Program in the Philippines by Representative Garin Sharon, Tiangco, and Gatchalian.
To the Committee on Trade and Industry.
House Bill number 8618, amending Republic Act number 6732, Republic Act number 26, and PD number 1529 in relation to registration of property by Representatives Velasco, Romualdez Ferdinand, Marcoleta Ordanes, and Romero.
The Committee on Justice.
House Bill number 8619, granting a franchise to Capricorn Broadcasting Network Corporation by Representative Lagman.
To the Committee on Legislative Franchises.
House Bill number 8620, amending certain provisions of the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines by Representative Gatchalian.
To the Committee on Trade and Industry.
House Bill number 8621, mandating the inclusion of Philippine history as a subject in the high school curriculum by Representatives Castro Franz and Elago.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill number 8622, providing for expanded paternity leave benefits by Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment and the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation.
House Bill number 8623, expanding the coverage of the Telecommuting Act and providing incentives for telecommuting employees by Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment.
House Bill number 8624, increasing the normal work hours per day under a compressed work week scheme by Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment.
House Bill number 8625, granting employees the right to disconnect from work-related electronic communications after work hours by Representative Rodriguez.
The Committee on Labor and Employment.
House Bill number 8626, providing for a Magna Carta of workers in informal economy by Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment.
House Bill number 8627, providing for the revised Consumer Act of the Philippines by Representative Gatchalian.
To the Committee on Trade and Industry.
House Bill number 8628, providing for additional mechanisms to accelerate the recovery and bolster the resiliency of the Philippine economy by Representatives Velasco, Kimbo, Liachon, Singson Mihan, Gatchalian, Romero, Martinez, Duavit, Ermita Buhain, Madrona, Benitez, and Ern Verga.
To the Committee on Economic Affairs.
House Bill number 8629, extending the validity of licenses of medical doctors from 3 years to 5 years by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation.
House Bill number 8630, establishing a National College for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics in New Clark City, Capas, Tarlac by Representative Barba.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
Resolutions. House Resolution 1541, directing the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries to inquire on the alleged hacking of credit cards issued by HSBC Limited by Representatives Nograles Jericho.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1542, directing the Committee on Transportation to inquire on the capacity and preparedness of the LTO and the private motor vehicle inspection centers in the implementation of the new motor vehicle inspection system by Representative Gatchalian.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1543, expressing the profound condolences of the House to the family of former Representative Conrado Dong V. Apasible of the 1st District of Batangas by Representative Ermita Buhain.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1544, expressing the profound condolences of the House to the family of the Honorable John H. Osmeña, former Senator and former Representative of the 2nd Legislative District of Cebu during the 7th Congress and of the 3rd Legislative District of Cebu during the 10th Congress by Representatives Velasco, Romualdez Ferdinand, Paduano, Garcia, Pablo Jan.
To the Committee on Rules.
Messages from the Senate. Message dated February 1st, 2021, informing the House that the Senate on even date passed Senate Bill 1582, in which it requests the concurrence of the House.
To the Committee on Transportation.
Message dated February 1st, 2021, informing the House that the Senate on even date passed without amendments House Bill number 6222.
To the Committee on Local Government.
Communications, letter dated September 28, 2020, of Bato S. Ali Jr., Director 4, BIRMM, COA, copy furnished Speaker Velasco, transmitting to the House a copy of their 2019 Annual Audit Report on the Mangsamoro Transition Authority, BARM, Cotabato City.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letters and emails from certain city mayors, municipal mayors, and provincial governors submitting their reports on fund utilization and status of programs, projects, activities, implementation relative to Bayanihan Grant to cities, municipalities, and provinces, and the Local Government Support Fund for certain months of 2020.
Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated December 11, 2020, of Secretary Delphine N. Lorenzana, DND, submitting to the House a copy of their calendar year 2020 second quarter report on the revised AFP modernization program.
The Committee on National Defense and Security.
Letter dated December 23, 2020, of Lorely D. Villaflores, Chief Human Resource Division, NTRC, DOF, informing the House that Ms. Marlene L. Calubag has been appointed as Executive Director and Ms. Debbie F. Asistio C. as Deputy Executive Director, and requesting that all communications to the NTRC be addressed to Executive Director Calubag.
The Committee on Ways and Means.
Letter dated January 13, 2021, of President and CEO Emmanuel G. Herbosa, DBP, notifying the House that the required quarterly budget and financial accountability reports for the quarter ending December 31st, 2020 have been posted in the DBP website under the Transparency and Disclosures DBP Transparency Seal page.
The Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries.
2020 Annual Report of the TESDA.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
Letter dated January 29, 2021, of Executive Secretary Salvador C. Medjaldea, Office of the President, Malacanang, transmitting 2 original copies of RA 11521, which was signed by President Duterte.
The Archives.
Committee reports. Report number 735, the Committee on Constitutional Amendments on resolution of both houses number 2. Report numbers 736 and 737 of the Committee on Justice on House Bills numbers 8631 and 8632.
To the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, today being a Monday, I move that we open the privilege hour. And Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Franz L. Castro of Party List ACT Teachers to avail of her privilege hour.
Senator Franz Castro is recognized. You have now the floor.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker. Magandang araw po sa inyo po at sa kapwa ko mga kinakawan. Alam po natin kung gaano kahalaga ang edukasyon. Sa kabila ng pandemya, nagpapatuloy ang edukasyon sa pamamagitan ng blended learning o yung distance learning. Ngunit marami pa rin pong mga problema ang kinakaharap nito, lalo na po sa pagkatuto ng kabataan. Kailangan po nating i-assess at i-review ang blended learning kung talaga bang nakakaagapay ito sa kailangan ng ating ating bagong approach. Ayon sa UNESCO, ngayong January 2, 2021, mayroon na lamang 28 na mga countrywide closures of schools mula sa 172 countries noong March 2020. Kasama rito ang Pilipinas na wala pang malinaw na plano sa pagbubukas ng paaralan sa pamamagitan ng face-to-face classes. Ginoong Speaker, atin pong nakitang tala mula sa UNESCO, ang Uruguay ang isa sa mga unang bansa na nag-reopen ng paaralan at nagkaroon ng face-to-face classes noong Abril 2020. Kasama ang mga sumusunod na bansa sa listahan ng mga nagbukas na paaralan. Ang Japan, August 2020, pero classrooms are only half full. Ang bansang France noong September 2020 na may compulsory mask 1 meter apart at disinfection of school facilities. Sa Germany noong July 2020 na may reminder sa frequent hand washing at free testing para sa mga guro. Sa Spain, September 2020, Denmark at Norway, mid-April 2020, kung saan sila rin ang unang nagpapasok ng primary school children. Ang Vietnam, May 2020, ang Thailand, July 2020, ang Singapore, August 2020, ang Wuhan, China, na kung saan andito yung sentro ng COVID-19, May 2020 for senior students. At iba pang mga bansa habang sumusunod sa safety and health measures tulad ng wearing of mask, checking of body temperature, distancing or minimize contact, small class size or groups, disinfecting or sanitizing of school facilities, at iba pang health protocols. Ayon po sa World Health Organization o yung WHO, ang pagsasara ng mga paaralan ay may negative impact sa kalusugan, edukasyon at development ng kabataan. Sa Pilipinas, iba't ibang problema ang kinaharap ng sektor ng edukasyon. Hindi pa kasama rito ang perennial problems, quote-unquote. Kulang ang health facilities ng mga paaralan at sa datos po ng DepEd, mayroon lamang 3,657 public school nurses para sa 21,741,049 public school students na may ratio itong 1 nurse is to 5,945 students. Kulang din ang pasilidad at functional clinic. Mayroon lamang 13,081 na paaralan ang may clinic. Dagdag pa mula sa DepEd, meron lamang 28% of the 47,013 or 13,081 schools ang may clinic. At nasa 2,970 schools lang naman ang walang basic hand washing facilities. At wala pa sa bilang na ito ang tala kung ilan lang ang may matinong water and sanitation sources and implements na kagyat na pangangailangan ng disease prevention. mayroon pong kinandak na study ang movement for safe, equitable, quality, and relevant education, o movement o yung tinatawag na secure. This is a broad network of students, of education experts, students, teachers, parents, and school personnel. Numerous signs points to the failure or shortcomings of distance learning based on 3 separate online surveys conducted on November 23 to December 22 among teachers, students, and parents. And according to the survey focused on assessing the conduct of distance learning in basic education, primarily in the public schools. So, pwede po ba akong mag-share po ng screen? Mr. Speaker, kung hahayaan po ninyo ay mag-aano po ako ng sharing of screen
Yes, you may proceed.
para ilahad ko po yung sinasabi nating survey ng mga teachers, students, and parents.
Castro is requested to continue with this. Extended audiovisual.
May we know the pleasure of Representative Castro?
Mr. Chair, I have here a PowerPoint showing the assessment on the conduct of distance learning for the first quarter of the school year 2020-21. This survey is conducted by Movement for Safe, Equitable, Quality, and Relevant Education group, okay, in which the Alliance of Concerned Teachers belong. And I would like to share screen, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you may proceed, Representative Castro.
Okay, so hindi ko po makita yung yung sharing of So, Mr. Chair, naka-disabled po yung sharing of screen.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may I request
Okay.
the Honorable Castro to allow our technical team instead to share the
Okay.
infos.
Sige po, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, so yung una po ay, so ito po, ang survey po ay kanandak sa, next screen please, 1,395 teachers, 1,207 parents, 120 grades, 4 to 2 students, random, nationwide. Okay, next screen. So, competencies not being developed. So, according to the survey, 70.9% of teacher respondents do not think or not confident that the competences set by the Department of Education under distance learning are actually being developed. Next screen. Dwindling student participations. Among teacher respondents, 4% with all students keeping up with the lessons, 54% identified that the definite portion of their class is lagging behind, and 42% testified that an indefinite segment of their class is not keeping pace. Next. So, ito po, Mr. Chair, 53% of the student respondents do not think or are not sure if they can learn the competencies set by the DepEd for their grade level under the distance learning. And among parent respondents, only 42.7% are confident that their children understand their lesson. So only 70% of the students are confident that they can complete the school year. Next. On issues on equitable access and quality of education. So ayon po sa survey, next slide. So 71 to 72% of the students and parents have experienced failing to attend online classes due to due to problems on gadgets, internet connection, and distance learning expenses. So sinasabi po sa survey, 87% po ng mga estudyante unstable yung mga internet connection. 7% or 7 out of 10 ang nagsasabi they use the gadgets lent by the local government units at 20% po sa mga estudyante ang nagsasabi naman po na they share the gadgets with other members of their family. Okay, next. So 56%, so sabi po no sa mga parents, 56% reported that distance learning has costed them 900 and below. And 44% of this expended more than 900 pesos per month po ito. 20% of the students said they lack the money to support distance learning costs. It's the real problem. And 2/3 of the teachers said that the DepEd failed to adequately provide for the needs of the distance learning. Okay, next. 73% of the parents said that orientation for parents and the modality is inadequate, and 1/3 of the students indicate a lack of know-how on various software needed in class. Next. Ito naman po yung nakuha namin na mga sagot about the modules. So sinasabi po sa survey, 4 in every 10 students respondents found errors in the modules that they use. 50.4% of the teachers think that the modules were not really self-learning, as opposed to the 24.5% who think that the modules are self-learning enough. Next, on the adult guidance, ito po yung tinanong nila kung meron bang mga guidance ang mga parents sa pag-aaral ng mga bata. So sinasabi po, 9 in every 10 students under modular distance learning communicate with their teachers through Facebook Messenger, and majority of them, or 57.4, felt the lack of connection to their teachers as a problem. And then 0.8% of the students said that the learning support aides visit their homes, and 25% of the students have no one to guide them in their lessons. And 60% or 6 out of 10 students in the modular learning raised concerns over unclear learning assessment under the modality. Okay. On inadequate teachers training, 40% of the teachers think that the pieces of training given to them to prepare for distance learning are inadequate compared to the 37 who think otherwise. On concerns on healthy and safety, 46.7% of teachers believe that the DepEd has not adequately ensured their safety and health protection, while 33.5% think otherwise. So on negative health impacts, 54% of students said that distance learning activities have negative impacts on their physical and mental health. Or 3 in every 10 students and parents affirm that distance learning impacts family relationships negatively. So, ang conclusion po doon sa kanilang survey, looming learning crisis. So, sinasabi po dito, next slide, on their survey findings underscore the urgent need to address the major issues presented so as to salvage the remaining periods of the school year and thwart the long-term negative impacts of the health and economic crisis on education. So to avert the crisis, propose key measures to the government o sa ating pong Department of Education. Number one, sufficient funding for all the needs of blended learning, provision of necessary resources and technologies, establishment of support services, adjustment in the curriculum work and study load and assessment and grading systems, and fine-tuning in the overall blended learning design to make it work to more effectively. Okay? So sinasabi po Mr. Chair doon sa ating so bilang kinatawan po ng mga guro at advocate ng karapatan sa edukasyon, naniniwala po tayo sa ACT Teachers Party List na dapat nang baguhin ng DepEd ang kanilang approach sa education ngayong panahon ng pandemya. Hindi na po nakasasabay ang mga mag-aaral sa blended learning dahil sa dagdag na gastos at kawalan ng access sa online kahit pa sa mga modules kung magpapatuloy pa rin itong failing distance learning. Lalo lamang itong magreresulta sa looming learning crisis. Kaya nananawagan po tayo sa Kongreso ng mga sumusunod na mga na mga konkretong mga rekomendasyon mula sa ating mga guro, mula sa ating mga parents na yung una po ay roll out a clear plan for a safe conduct of voluntary in-classroom learning in low-risk areas. Kasi po, ang sitwasyon po ng ating bansa, kaugnay ng COVID-19, ay hindi po katulad ng NCR. Hindi po ito katulad ng Davao, ng Cebu, at iba't iba pa. So marami tayong mga areas na low-risk na tinatawag natin. At syempre po, para ma-reduce po yung risk of dropping out. So yung una po, kailangan ng competent risk assessment of schools. Pangalawa, installation of health and safety facilities such as adequate comfort rooms and hand washing facilities, school clinic and others, hiring of school nurse and sanitation personnel, prioritization of teachers and learners in the vaccination program, conduct of health check and mass testing to all education workers and learners who will participate in classroom learning. Strict implementation of health programs such as reducing the class size to a maximum of 15 students, rotation of face-to-face class schedules, regular disinfection of school premises, and practice social distancing and wearing of face masks, and provision for free face masks, alcohol, hygiene kits, etc. Number 2, pass supplementary budget to provide all teaching and learning resources needed in distance learning. Kailangan po tayong mag-provide ng budget. Doon naman po sa mga area na kailangan talagang gamitan ng distance learning dahil high risk. Ano po yung rekomendasyon? Una, provision of laptop to all teachers and appropriate gadgets learners in need. The grant of 1,500 pesos per month allowance for internet subscription, communication, electricity expenses to all teachers. Internet subsidy for learners in need. Adequate and quality modules. Hiring of community tutors to guide learners who lack available and capable adult guidance. Improvement on quality and access to TV-based instruction as supplement to limited teacher-learner interaction. Adequate and relevant training activities for teachers. At para naman po, Mr. Chair, ma-ensure, matiyak yung provision ng health protection and payment of just benefits to education workers. There shall be free annual medical check-up for education workers, the grant of 15-day sick leave to teachers, payment of hazard pay, establishment of medical fund to assist education workers who will get infected with COVID-19, the grant of overtime pay and overload pay, ensure the timely and adequate payment of regular benefits. And then implement, at panghuli po, implement genuine academic ease. Review and further streamlining the most essential learning competencies. Reduction of hours of synchronous classes. Streamlining of student academic requirements to include only reasonable and worthwhile activities. And hiring of non-teaching personnel to free teachers and ancillary duties, reduction of paperwork, and non-teaching activity. And also, last is the leniency and academic deadlines for teachers and students. So sinasabi po natin, Mr. Speaker, sa konklusyon, sinasabi po natin na kailangan na po natin paghandaan yung gradual o yung paunti-unting transisyon ng ating edukasyon sa tinatawag nating face-to-face. Sinasabi na po ng ating mga parents, students, hindi na po nila kakayanin kung sa susunod na school year ay ganito pa rin po ang sitwasyon. Meron po tayong nalalabing 4 na buwan, March, April, May, June, para paghandaan po itong mga sinasabi nating mga rekomendasyon para makabalik na po sa normal, with the new normal, yung mga klase po sa ating mga estudyante. At alam po natin na wala pong hihigit doon sa face-to-face, para kung gusto nating makuha yung kalidad ng edukasyon. So ito lang po, Mr. Speaker, maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member who wishes to interpolate, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Franz Castro to the Committee on Rules for proper action.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is carried.
Mr. Speaker, may I request that we recognize the Honorable Euphemia Kulyamat from Party List Bayan Muna to avail of the privilege hour.
Representative Euphemia Kulyaman from Bayan Muna is recognized.
Maraming salamat. Magandang hapon, Ginoong Speaker, mga kapwa ko mambabatas, nasa Zoom at sa plenaryo at maging hanggang sa labas ng ngayon, sa ilalim ng pinaigting na panggigipit ng administrasyon sa mga progresibong organisasyon, leader, mass media at iba pang individual gamit ang terror law, AFP, PNP at NTF-ELCAC, lalo pang lulupit ang pagmamanipula ng rehimen sa mga ebidensya at pagsasampa ng mga gawa-gawang kaso laban sa mamamayan. Ginoong Speaker, 4 na progresibong individual mula sa aming rehiyon sa Caraga ang illegal na inaresto at sinampahan ng gawa-gawang kaso dahil daw sila ay membro ng CPP-NPA. Legal na hinuli si Sayas Ginoria, 72 taon, noong Pebrero 5. Sayas ang kasalukuyang spokesperson ng Piston Caraga. Kinabukasan, may 3 na namang inaresto. Isa dito si Gina Tutor, coordinator ng Gabriela Women's Party sa Agusan del Norte. Ilang minuto pagka-aresto kay Gina, inaresto din sa Tubay, Agusan del Norte si Greco Regala na miyembro ng Pamalakaya sa Agusan del Norte. Sa kahapunan ay sinunod naman na arestuhin si Vilma Dalangin Yik, isa ring 72 taon at isang community health worker sa Mainit, Surigao del Norte. Ito ay di umano dahil ang mga gawa-gawang kaso na may kinalaman sa pagpatay kay Garito Malibato sa Kapalong, Davao del Norte. Noong Speaker, ayon sa Karapatan Caraga, noong 1 taon lamang ay kinasuhan ng mga gawa-gawang kaso na konektado sa gawain ng NPA, sina Tutor at Ginorga. Dalawa rito, isinampa sa Surigao del Norte, Surigao del Sur, ngunit ibinasura rin ng korte na sa kinalaunan dahil hindi titindig ang mga imbentong katibayan. Ginoong Speaker, noong isang linggo ay nabalitaan din natin na ibinasura ng Mandaluyong RTC Judge Kisumbing ang mga kasong isinampa laban kay Lidian Salim at Rodrigo Esparago na bahagi ng 7 aktivistang inaresto noong December 10 ng Human Rights Day. Ito ay katibayan lamang na walang katotohanan ang ibinibintang na mga kaso sa kanila na nakasaad sa mga arrest warrant. Maging ang search warrant ay pinapaulambisan ng korte at sinabing tila fishing expedition lamang ang ginawa ng mga pulis. Ginoong Speaker, sunod-sunod pa rin ang atake sa forma na patuloy na pagpapataw at pagtatanim ng mga ebidensya sa mga progresibong individual at kritiko ng administrasyong ito. Dagdag pa ang lehitimisasyon ito sa bisa ng kinwestiyon ng marami ngayon sa Korte Suprema ang Anti-Terror Act. Ginoong Speaker, ang pag-aresto sa 4 na leaders sa Caraga ay isang mukha ng desperado na parang patahimikin ang mga aktivista at kritiko sa iba't ibang panig ng kapuluan dahil sa nabubunyag ang kapalpakan ng administrasyon na ito sa pagtugon sa krisis ng pandemya at ng pabulusok na ekonomiya ng bansa. Hindi gawain ng matinong gobyerno ang pagpapatahimik sa mga kritiko at aktivista. Ang pagwawasto sa kapalpakan ay dapat itama ng mabuting gawi at hindi ang pag-aresto batay sa gawa-gawang kaso at pagtatanim ng kung ano-anong mga ebidensya. Ginoong Speaker, maraing kong kinukundina ang illegal na pag-aresto sa 4 na leader sa Caraga at nanawagan din ako para sa madaliang pagpapalaya sa 2 senior citizen na inaresto at sa iba pang bilanggong politikal upang maiwasan na rin ang inaasahang malalang sakunang maaring mangyari sa mga siksikang bilangguan, lalo na't nasa gitna tayo ngayon ng pandemya. Ito lamang po, Ginoong Speaker, ulit magandang hapon sa ating lahat.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member who wishes to interpolate, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Kafemia to the Committee on Rules for proper action.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is carried.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Representative Angelina Helen D. L. Tan from 4th District of Quezon for her privilege.
The Honorable Angelina Helen Tan from the 4th District of Quezon is now recognized. You may proceed.
Maraming salamat at magandang hapon po, Ginoong Speaker, dear colleagues. I rise on a matter of personal and collective privilege, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues in this august chamber, regarding an uploaded TikTok video which imputes corruption allegations against me and my husband, DPWH Regional Director, Engineer Ronel Tan. I have entitled this privileged speech as PLLO Undersecretary, TikToking a good name on behalf of a dirty politics. Kung sino itong malisyosong presidential legislative assistant na ito na may ranggong Undersecretary, Ginoong Speaker, ay nakahanda akong ibunyag para sa kaalaman ng lahat. Pero hayaan po sana ninyo muna akong ihayag kung ano ang mga pangyayari. Noon pong December 1 ng nakaraang taon, ipinagbigay alam sa akin ng ilang mga kaibigan at taga-suporta ang patungkol sa isang website, sovereignph.com, na nasa likod ng mga paninira laban sa akin at aking kabiyak. Kasama dito ang isang kumakalat na video na in-upload sa TikTok. TikTok, as we all know, is a short-form video sharing app that allows users to create and share videos on any topic. Videos uploaded in TikTok are usually exciting, spontaneous, and genuine. Ngunit ang TikTok na aking tinutukoy na in-upload sa pamamagitan ng username at sovereignph ay kakaiba dahil hindi siya exciting o nakakasabik, hindi siya spontaneous o kusang loob, at lalong hindi siya genuine o makatotohanan. Ang TikTok na ito ay kabaligtaran ng lahat. Ito ay hindi exciting o kapanapanabik dahil ano ba naman ang exciting sa walang patumanggang paninira ng mabuting pangalan na matagal na inalagaan at iningatan. Hindi rin ito spontaneous o kusang loob dahil ito ay malinaw na premeditated, pinagplanuhan at pinag-aksayahan ng panahon at resources. At lalong hindi ito genuine o tunay dahil ito ay tahasan lamang paninira at walang basehang pagbibintang. Sa video ay malinaw na mapapansin ang isang caption sa ilalim ng larawan naming mag-asawa na nagsasabing, "Exclusive, DOJ urged to probe Kong Helen Tan's Hospital for graft." Habang sa bandang itaas naman nito ay nakasulat ang salitang corrupt officials. Kung hindi ito tahasang paninira ay hindi ko na po alam. Wala pa ngang pruweba, puro akusasyon lamang, wala pa silang napapatunayan, corrupt officials na agad kaming mag-asawa. What has been shown or depicted in the video is totally unfair, untrue, unjustified, and utterly malicious. Kung sino man ang may pinanghahawakang ebidensya na nagpapatunay ng aming pang-aabuso sa kapangyarihan, buong puso po naming haharapin at patutunayan na wala kaming kasalanan sa lahat ng kanilang mga ibinibintang na mga kasinungalingan. Ipinakita rin po sa TikTok na ito ang isang drone shot na nagsasabing isang malaking mansyon sa probinsya ng Quezon na di umano'y pagmamay-ari ng isang political couple. Ito ay malinaw na namang ipinatutungkol sa aming mag-asawa. Sa ngayon ay hindi na po mapapanood ang nasabing video dahil ito ay tinanggal na sa TikTok. Mr. Speaker, vicious insinuation without credible proof is now becoming the name of the game, and I did not stand here to dignify that. Hinahamon ko ang aking mga kalaban sa politika, magsampa kayo ng kaso kung gusto ninyo, patunayan ninyo, wag puro bintang at padinira. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I am wondering what is the connection of former Congressman and now Undersecretary Jacinto Villegas Paras of the PLLO and all of these machinations. The last time I know, the Presidential Legislative Liaison Office is tasked to officially orchestrate the formulation and shepherding of the President's legislative agenda and all other concerns of the Executive Department having to do with legislative and liaisons with Congress regarding all matters impinging on executive-legislative relations. As a matter of fact, that office is mandated to promote presidential legislative initiatives and other administration-sponsored priority policy reforms and development programs responsive to the realization of presidential social contract with Filipino people and achievement of the Philippine Development Plan. Its vision is supposedly that of the executive and legislative branches of government working together in harmonious, collaborative, and transparent environment for the attainment of goals beneficial to the greater majority of Filipino people. Ngayon, Mr. Speaker, ang tanong ko kay Yusek Paras ay ito. Ano itong ginawa mo? Ba talaga ang gawain mo sa PLLO? O alam mo ba ang trabahong pinasok mo? Mr. Speaker, on December 7, my lawyer filed before the NBI Lucena City a formal request to investigate the identities of the perpetrators behind the malicious online posts against me and my husband, particularly those people behind this evil-intentioned TikTok. And look what they have found, Mr. Speaker. The NBI, after thorough investigation, has found out that the website I mentioned earlier, which is responsible for these malicious posts, is connected with Sovereign News Publishing, which is owned by Mr. Jacinto Villegas Paras. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Trade and Industry, no less, has issued a certification on January 22, 2021 in Makati City that per its available records, pursuant to Act Number 3883 as amended, otherwise known as Business Name Law, there has been an existing business name registration filed as Sovereign News Publishing. It was registered on August 19, 2020 with certificate number 2094548 under the name of Jacinto Villegas Paras as its owner. So sandali lang, Yusek. Hindi ba't ito'y isang malinaw na conflict of interest? The DTI has issued this certification in response to the letter request from the NBI Taft Avenue Ermita dated January 21, 2022, and on which basis the NBI has issued a subpoena to Yusek Paras. Sadly, he failed to appear before the NBI to shed light on this matter. Siguro ay nalinawan ang isyong ito kung sumipot lamang si Yusek Paras, na ipinatawag ng NBI noong February 4, 2021 upang ipaliwanag kung ano ang kanyang kinalaman o nalalaman ukol sa pagpapalipad ng drone at tahasang paninira laban sa akin. Siguro naman, matapos kong ibunyag ngayon ang pangyayaring ito dito mismo sa Kongreso, ay mapipilitan siyang humarap sa ikalawang patawag ng NBI na itinakda sa darating na February 22. Pakipaliwanag lang, Yusek Paras, kung bakit nag-abala kang magpalipad ng drone at sirain kaming mag-asawa. Yan ba ang bago mong trabaho bilang Undersecretary, sir? Bahagi ba ito ng isang harmonious, collaborative, and transparent environment na gusto niyong mangyari sa relasyon ng Kongreso at ehekutibo? Pero ang mas malaking tanong siguro kay Yusek Paras, sino ang tao na nasa likod mo? At dahil ang video na ito ay in-upload sa TikTok na walang pahintulot mula sa akin, hindi ba ito ay nangangahulugan rin na paglabag sa aking privacy rights? Mr. Speaker, dear colleagues of this august chamber, we cannot take this issue lightly. Kung nagawa ito sa akin ni Mr. Paras o kung nagawa ito laban sa akin ni Yusek Paras, kaya rin niya itong gawin sa sinuman na kanyang pwedeng ituring na kalaban o di kaya'y mga kalaban ng kanyang mga itinuturing na kakampi sa politika. I cannot believe that Mr. Paras will do this insane, blatantly malicious and contemptible thing on his own. Wala naman akong ginawa na anuman laban sa kanya. I don't even know him personally, except from what I read before regarding his involvement with the so-called Gang of Five and a cell phone theft right in the premises of the House of Representatives, which the complainant, a former congressman, believed to have been made in order to get information against a senator. But clearly, he did this at the instance, perhaps, of a friend, political ally, for all time's sake. I can only surmise, Mr. Speaker. Pero kahit anong paninirang puri ang inyong gawin, no matter what TikToking you do to tarnish our character in the name of politicking, the good name that we have painstakingly built will remain a legacy to our children. I refuse to be coerced by your kind, and I will never stoop to your level. After this speech, I will respectfully decline to yield the floor for interpellation. I took the floor to answer the personal attack against me and to expose the mastermind, or just maybe one of those who have a hand in it. And any interpellation will merely serve to waste the time of the House, considering that appropriate charges will be filed in court soon. Pero nais ko lang sanang manawagan kay Yusek Paras, Mr. Speaker, na sa pagkakataong ito, na kung meron pa siyang natitirang hiya, delikadesa at respeto sa kanyang sarili, ay magbitiw na siya sa kanyang pwesto at huwag nang ilagay pa sa alanganin ang maselang trabaho ng kanyang tanggapang pinaglilingkuran. I also call upon the leadership of this chamber to look into this matter in as much as it involves a liaison with the House, who instead of sustaining a day-to-day collaboration with this chamber is unjustly undermining one of its members, all in the name of dirty politics and hopefully not at our taxpayers' expense. This is certainly out of bounds and highly immoral. As I end, Mr. Speaker, let me quote Proverbs 22, verse 1. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold. I have made that choice, Mr. Speaker, dear colleagues, and that choice remains today. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of Honorable Angelina Helen D. L. Tan to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action.
Any objection? There being none, the motion. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Honorable Cheryl P. De Loso Montalia of 2nd District of Zambales for her privilege.
Representative Cheryl De Losa Montalia is recognized. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I rise today on a matter of personal and collective privilege. Ako po ay nababahala sa pagtrato ng isang miyembro ng konsulado ng Poland sa ating mga kababayan sa lalawigan ng Zambales. Nangyari po ang insidente noong Sabado, ika-6 ng Pebrero ngayong taon, mga bandang 3:15 ng hapon. Ayon sa spot report ng ating kapulisan sa bayan ng Candelaria, nangyari ang insidente sa barangay Malimanga at kung saan ang isang kababayang sakay ng kanyang motorsiklo at may angkas na isang babae ay nag-overtake sa isang kulong-kulong. Habang ito ay nag-overtake, ay biglang sumulpot sa kanyang likuran at nag-overtake din ng isang itim na Kia Grand Carnival na may plakang 9251. Sa pag-overtake nito, ay nasagi niya ang hulihang bahagi ng motor na naging dahilan ng pagkatumba nito. Ang Kia Grand Carnival na ito ay humarurot na lamang nang hindi man lang inalam kung ano ang nangyari sa mga biktima. Makikita naman po ninyo sa spot report ng Candelaria PNP na ang driver ng motor ay walang trabaho at siya po ay nabalian ng 2 buto sa braso. Mr. Speaker, this incident would have been another simple case of a hit and run were it not for the events that ensued. After the victims were brought to Candelaria District Hospital, the members of Candelaria PNP alerted its neighboring PNP stations of the crime in progress. This prompted Masinloc PNP to establish a checkpoint in Barangay Inhobol in the municipality of Masinloc. At 3:50 p.m., the Kia Grand Carnival was intercepted by the Masinloc PNP. At 4:45 p.m., the survivor passenger called this representation to ask for help, considering that the survivor driver was jobless, was being attended to in the hospital. I immediately sent my legal team, which was composed of 2 lawyers, to assist survivor passenger and survivor driver. At 6 p.m., the 2 lawyers arrived at the checkpoint in Masinloc. There, they saw the driver of the Kia Grand Carnival. Upon introduction of themselves to the driver showed his vice consul ID and arrogantly said that he is above the law. Invoking the Vienna Convention of 1963, he argued that he is immune from suit and that the PNP cannot do anything about it. However, when asked about his immunity papers and other documents to prove that he is in the exercise of his official function, he did not show anything to either the members of the PNP or to my legal team. My dear colleagues, my legal team, knowing fully well that the mishandling of the situation could possibly strain our good relations with the Republic of Poland, tried to explain to the Vice Consul the implications of his actions. They attempted to sway him to a compromise deal that is acceptable to both parties in order to avoid litigation. But just as the proverbial porcupine, he conceitedly and abrasively told my legal team in the presence of the members of Masinloc PNP and some bystanders that he will only shell out a measly sum of 10,000 to the victims because, quote-unquote, they are poor anyway. As explained to the Vice Consul by my legal team, the immediate cause of the injury of both the motorcycle driver and his companion was his reckless driving. As was shown to him, the X-ray film of the motorcycle driver's forearm incurred close, complete fracture of both his radius and ulna, which would require a surgical operation called upon reduction and internal fixation, or ORIF, using metal implants. We very well know that the cost of each implant ranges from 30,000 to 90,000, depending on their quality. In this case, the driver would need at least 2 implants. It was at this point, Mr. Speaker, that another person who appeared to be the driver's boss alighted from the car and threatened the members of the PNP and that he will report the quote-unquote harassment of the police to Secretary Delphine Lorenzana. The car driver further claimed that he will not enter into a compromise agreement because my legal team and the members of the PNP only wanted a hefty sum as settlement to the aggrieved party. He insinuated that their insistence was because of the fact that they will be getting shares from the deal. The car driver averred that Filipinos are scammers and that what my legal team and the PNP are doing was a form of extortion. Not contented with his verbal insults to them and talking in the most reprehensible manner, he further said that he will make it sure that Filipinos will never get European visas and that his government will see Filipinos in the bad light after that incident. Mr. Speaker, as a lawyer, I fully understand that the Vienna Convention of 1961 governs absolute immunities and privileges of representatives of sending states. On the other hand, the Vienna Convention of 1963 governs limited immunities and privileges of non-representatives of sending states. Consuls and consular officers do not represent their states to the host state, but they may do so before international organizations. They are granted limited immunities and privileges from the host state, but diplomats have absolute immunities and privileges on each of the host state's territory. Under specific terms and procedures, the host state authorities can arrest, refer into criminal investigations, and prosecute any consul or consular officer of a sending state if he or she perpetrates crimes inside or outside of the consulate's premises. There is a string of Supreme Court decisions to this effect. Article 31 of the Vienna Convention of 1963 spells out the bounds of immunity from criminal, civil, and administrative jurisdiction of a host state. This applies to an action relating to any professional or commercial activity exercised by the diplomatic agent in the receiving state outside his official functions. For this reason, the Supreme Court, through Associate Justice Consuelo Inares Santiago, declared that the immunity mentioned is not absolute, but subject to the exception that the act was done in official capacity. This ruling echoes the application of functional immunity or protection from suit that applies only in the performance of a diplomat or in this case, the vice consul's official functions. The Supreme Court in 2000 ruling emphasized that the slander of a person by any stretch cannot be considered as falling within the purview of the immunity granted to the sending state's officers and personnel. Mr. Speaker, the vice consul or his unidentified boss cannot invoke functional immunity as a defense in their uncalled for utterances against my legal team or the members of the PNP. Beyond the legalities of this horrible incident, what totally abhors me are the discriminatory statements of the said vice consul and his unidentified boss towards us Filipinos. For the record, Mr. Speaker, my legal team offers legal services to my constituents free of charge. Maligning them and the members of our police force is definitely unacceptable. Our PNP may have its flaws, but it is continually correcting itself as part of its evolution to become better servants and protectors of every Filipino. To allude that they are extortionists is not only reproachable, but also unforgivable. Honorable colleagues, I am an advocate of anti-discrimination. In fact, we have just approved on third and final reading House Bill number 8243, or an act protecting and promoting the rights to equality and non-discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicity, and religion, of which I am a principal author. It is very ironic that while we are advocating equality and promoting non-discrimination in our country, we have before us this incident where foreign nationals, official representatives of their country to our state at that, trampled upon our very persons as Filipinos in our very own country. Mr. Speaker, in crafting that bill, I was guided by the wisdom of Nelson Mandela. This great soul once said, that no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or religion. In his address to the United Nations General Assembly on September 21, 1998, Nelson Mandela said, "In all we do, we have to ensure the healing of the wounds inflicted on our people across the great dividing line imposed on our society by centuries of colonialism and discrimination. We must ensure that color, race, and gender become only a God-given gift to each one of us and not an indelible mark or attribute that accords a special status to any. We must work for the day when we see one another and interact with one another as equal human beings and as part of one nation united rather than torn asunder by its diversity. The road we have to travel, reach this destination, will by no means be easy. All of us know how stubbornly discrimination can cling to the mind and how deeply it can infect the human soul. Where it is sustained by the racial ordering of the material world, as in the case of our country, that stubbornness can multiply 100-fold. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, the deplorable acts of discrimination towards us Filipinos by Vice Consul Bartosz Wozniko and his unidentified boss in the Embassy of the Republic of Poland must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. I am aghast by their shockingly bad demeanor. I am also dismayed because I was of the impression that Poland is home to gentle, kind, and well-mannered individuals, just like our well-loved Pope and Saint John Paul II. My dear colleagues, we must not allow anything more than this incident. We cannot let these disgraceful acts of Vice Consul Wozniko and his unidentified boss pass. Not today, not in Zambales, and definitely not in the Philippines ever. Mr. Speaker, I am filing a House resolution urging DFA Secretary Teodoro L. Locsin to declare Vice Consul Bartosz Wozniko and his boss persona non grata, while we take the necessary legal actions to hold him accountable for the crime that he committed in my district and in our country, and for conducts that are inimical to our people and our nation. Before I end my speech, I would like to commend the members of my legal team and the members of PNP of the municipalities of Candelaria and Masinloc for their exemplary behavior and for maintaining the excellent disposition in the discharge of their official functions as servants and protectors of the Filipino people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Your leader.
Mr. Speaker, considering that no member wishes to interpolate, I move to refer the speech of the Honorable Cheryl Deloso Montalia to the Committee on Rules for appropriate action.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is granted.
Mr. Speaker, next to avail of the privilege R, may I request that the Honorable Lady from Kabataan Party List, Sarah Jane Ilago, be recognized to avail of the privilege R.
Representative Sarah Jane Ilago from Party List Kabataan is now recognized. You have the floor. You may proceed.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker. 50 taon mula ngayong ika-8 araw ng Pebrero, ang pang-8 araw ng Diliman Commune. Nagsimula ito sa unang araw ng Pebrero noong 1971, noong naitayo ang unang barikada sa UP Diliman bilang pakikiisa ng mga estudyante at kabataan sa mga driver ng jeep. Sa pamumuno ng Samahang Demokratikong Kabataan at Kabataang Makabayan, tumulong ang mga estudyante sa pagtatayo ng barikada at pamimigay ng mga polyeto tungkol sa mga panawagan ng jeepney drivers laban sa pagtataas ng presyo ng langis. Isa sa mga propesor na nagpumilit na pumasok ay nakabaril at nakapatay ng isa sa mga estudyante na nakiisa sa barikada, at ito ay naghudyat ng higit na tensyon sa buong araw na nagtapos sa pakikipagpulong ni UP President Lopez kasama ang Peace and Order Council sa Camp Aguinaldo na naglalayong pigilan ang tuluyang pagpasok ng kapulisan sa loob ng pamantasan. Sunod pa ang 8 araw ng pakikibaka na nagmarka sa kasaysayan, Ginoong Speaker, hindi lang ng UP, kundi ng sambayanang Pilipino. Higit sa baliktanaw, ang paggunita sa Diliman Commune ay paninindigan ng pagpapatuloy ng makabayan at palaban na diwa ng paglilingkod sa sambayanang Pilipino. More than a commemoration, this is a continuation of the fight with and alongside the people for rights and welfare. Hindi lang ito para sa once young, kundi higit sa lahat, para sa mga young ones. Mula noon hanggang ngayon, halos wala pa ring makabuluhang pagbabago ang kalagayan ng kapakanan ng mga jeepney drivers. Higit pang pinalala ang krisis sa kabuhayan at kawalan ng trabaho dulot ng pandemya at sunod-sunod na mga kalamidad. Kaya naman, Ginoong Speaker, mula noong February 1 hanggang sa mga susunod pa na araw sa paggunita ng Diliman Commune, nakikiisa ang kabataan sa panawagan ng mga tsuper na palakasin pa rin ang hakbang kontra COVID-19 mula sa test, trace, isolate, treat at ang kabuang serbisyong pangkalusugan, ang balikpasada, ang tuloy-tuloy na ayuda, at pagtutol sa corporate takeover ng mga public utility vehicles. Hangad naming ang mga issue at hamon na ito ay dinggin at pag-usapan kaysa patahimikin ang boses ng mga driver, mga pasahero, mga commuters, na kalakhan rin ay mga kabataang manggagawa, mga estudyante, lalo na noong mayroon pang face-to-face classes. Higit 1 linggo na rin, Ginoong Speaker, ang nakaraan magmula ng maglabas muli si Lieutenant General Parlade at ang NTF para sa pagwawakas ng local communist armed conflict ng listahan ng mga schools na kung saan may di umano'y may NPA recruitment matapos ang unilateral termination ng DND ng UP-DND Accord. Matatandaang hindi ito ang unang pagkakataon na naglabas ng listahan ng schools. Noong 2018, naglabas na rin ng listahan ng mga pamantasan, 18 schools, sa kasagsagan ng martial law commemoration noong 2018. Ang 18 schools daw na ito ay parte ng sinasabing Red October o destabilization plot. Bukod sa hindi totoo, ang isa sa mga nilistang school ay non-existent. Muli, mariin itong kinundina at napasinungalingan ng mga nilistang pamantasan at kolehiyo. Ang 4 sa mga pinakamalalaking pamantasan ng Ateneo, LaSalle, UST at FEU ay tinawag ang ganitong taktika na getting old o naluluma na dahil sa makailang ulit na napamalian na ng mga nasabing universidad ang mga pahayag na ito. Sa kabila nito, muli na namang naglabas ng 38 colleges at universities list at isa na rito ang Aklan State University, kung saan nagkaroon ng dialogo ang Regional Task Force ng NTF-ELCAC sa mga opisyal hanggang sa mga kinatawan ng iba't ibang sektor ng pamantasan. At katulad ng mga naiulat na naming mga insidente sa kapulungang ito, Ginoong Speaker, ginamit na naman sa presentasyon sa nasabing pagtitipon ang mga larawan ko at ng Kabataan Party List kaugnay ng mga false at sweeping accusations. Ito ay malinaw na paninirang puri. Malinaw na hindi nito nirerespeto at tahasang paglabag sa karapatan sa due process at pantay na proteksyon sa ilalim ng ating mga batas. Malinaw na ito ay diskriminasyon. Malinaw na nilalagay nito sa kapahamakan, hindi lang ang aking buhay, kundi ang buhay at seguridad ng aking pamilya at ang buhay at seguridad ng bawat kasalukuyang kasapi at opisyal ng Kabataan Party List. Sa kasalukuyan na naming mga pinaghahandaan, ang mga dagdag na legal na aksyon upang mapanagot ang lahat ng nasa likod nito. Kinukundina ito ng mga kabataan at estudyante bilang isa na lamang banta sa mga batayang karapatang pantao at sa academic freedom. Pilit na ginagamit ang sinasabing counterinsurgency upang manghimasok sa affairs ng mga pamantasan. Noong January 30, Ginoong Speaker, nanawagan rin po ang Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines na ang pamahalaan ay dapat mag-focus sa pagharap sa mga ugat ng insurgency tulad ng kahirapan at marginalisasyon. Imbes na red tagging ng educational institutions na naglalagay sa panganib ng seguridad at kapakanan ng mga guro at estudyante. Sa kasaysayan at sinusuportahan ng mga pag-aaral na ang diskriminasyon, marginalisasyon, maling akusasyon, paninirang puri at ang mga inhustisya na katulad nito ay lalo lamang dumadagdag sa mga rason kung bakit natutulak ang marami sa landas ng armado na paglaban. Promosyon ng malaya at kritikal na pag-iisip at pagsusuri. Respeto sa karapatang pantao at pagtugon sa mga ugat ng armed conflict at iba pang systemic problems ang ating kinakailangan. Nananawagan kami sa Committee on Higher and Technical Education, Committee on Basic Education and Culture, at Committee on Human Rights na dinggin na ang lahat ng mga panukalang may kinalaman sa usapin ng kalayaan sa loob ng mga campuses at ng academic freedom. Sobra na po ang mga nararanasan ng mga panunupil ng mga estudyante at mga eskwelahan gamit ang hindi na mabilang na record ng pagkakamali sa paglalabas ng mga mali-maling impormasyon, mga fake quotes, mga photoshopped images, at mga listahan ng red tagging o terror tagging mula sa mga schools, mga youth at student leaders, mga guro, mga trade union organizers, mga IP leaders, mga artista, mga beauty queen, at kahit mga journalist ay nagiging biktima ng red tagging. Ito lamang humingi ng paumanhin ang Secretary ng National Defense dahil sa maling listahan ng UP alumni na iniugnay sa NPA. Nariyan din ang maling paggamit ng logo ng UP para magmukhang opisyal at may ugnayan ang pahayag ng isang instruktor sa pamantasan hinggil sa UP-DND Accord. Sinundan pa ito ng paggamit ng mga pribadong larawan ng mga UP alumni nang walang pahintulot sa mga misleading na post na ipinamahagi rin ni NTF-ELCAC spokesperson Lorraine Badoy. Naging malaking anomaly rin ang paglalabas ng infographic ng PNP Batak na nagsasaad ng kahulugan ng kung sino ang terorista. Nakasama po sa kanilang definition ay ang pag-uugnay sa mga relief donors, relief workers at mga lumalahok sa rally sa terorismo. Hanggang ngayon ay hindi pa identified kung sino ang nasa likod nito sa kabila ng maagang pag-uumpisa ng investigation tungkol dito. Dagdag pa, Ginoong Speaker, ang photoshopped image ng fake surrenderies na lumabas noong December 2019. Bagamat nagsorry na ang Philippine Army 9th Infantry Division para rito, dapat po hindi na ito maulit at managot ang lahat ng mga nasa likod ng paggamit ng mga manipulated photo dahil ito po ay panlilinlang sa ating sa taong bayan. Ngayon na mayroon ng batas na sinasabing counter-terror, hindi biro at lubos na nakapapahamak ang mapabilang sa mga listahan na ito. Isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit sa ating kasaysayan, isa ito sa may pinakamaraming mga petisyon na hinahamon ang constitutionality sa harap ng Korte Suprema. Ginoong Speaker, wala pa man ang anti-terror law, matindi na ang nararanasan na harassment ng mga outspoken na mga kabataan. Isang kaso rito ang tinawag na Tacloban 5. Ang young community journalist na si Frenchie May Cumpio, ang lay worker na si Mariel Domiquil, si Mira Lijon ng Bayan Eastern Visayas, si Alexander Abiguna mula sa Karapatan National Council, at si Marisa Cabaljao mula sa People's Search Network. Isang taon na mula nang gamitin sa kanila ang modus operandi ng mga raids sa opisina upang mataniman ng mga bala at bomba at sampahan ng mga non-bailable charges. At kaugnay nito, magandang balita po ang nabahagi na rin kanina ni Representative Kulyamat no, tungkol sa order ni Judge Monique Quisumbing Ignacio ng Mandaluyong Regional Trial Court na pagbabasura sa mga parehong kaso laban sa dalawa sa tinawag na HRD 7 na sina journalist na si Lady Ann Salem at trade union organizer na si Rodrigo Esparago na illegal possession of firearms and explosives na pawang mga trumped-up charges na naikaso rin sa Tacloban 5. Nakasaad sa order ni Judge Quisumbing Ignacio na null and void ang ginamit na search warrant. According to the order, Mr. Speaker, there was no probable cause to issue the search warrant in the first place. Nananawagan ang kabataan na ibasura ang mga gawa-gawang kaso, itigil na ang political persecution at palayain na ang mga unjustly detained na political prisoners. Sa harap ng krisis sa pandemya, karapatang pantao at klima, malinaw na buhay pa rin ang saysay ng kasaysayan ng Diliman Commune, na ang kabataan, estudyante at ang pamantasan ng bayan ay patuloy na magsisilbi ng buong sikap, ng may dangal, ng buong husay, ng may tatag at tapang para sa mas magandang bukas bilang mitya ng pagbabago sa paglilingkod sa interes ng sambayanang Pilipino. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member who wishes to interpolate, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Elago to the Committee on Rules for appropriate action.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is carried.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we extend the privilege hour by another 15 minutes.
Motion.
Mr. Speaker, to avail of the privilege hour, I respectfully move that we recognize the Honorable Rani Abu from the 2nd District of Batangas.
The Honorable Rani Abu is recognized. You have the floor. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I rise today on a matter of personal and collective privilege as an ASEAN citizen, as a parliamentarian, and as a Filipino. On 1 February, the military detained State Councilor Daung San Suu Kyi and other leaders of the National League for Democracy, or NLD. A year-long state of emergency was declared, and Vice President and former Lieutenant General Mian Sui, once told as acting president, Mian Sui immediately handed over power to Commander-in-Chief Senior General Min Aung Hlaing. Internet connections and phone lines throughout the country were disrupted. Pro-democracy activists have been arrested, with reports of increased detentions in the next coming days. Among the key leaders arrested, aside from Daung San Suu Kyi, are President U Win Myint and dozens of officials from NLD. The arrests of these leaders came just before the parliament was due to convene for the first time in order to pick the president and vice presidents. The Timido, as the military is known, had disputed the results of the November elections, which saw the majority of the seats won by the NLD. Regardless of how events unfold this week and beyond, Myanmar's fragile democratic institutions has been severely undermined by the military actions. Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues, the world leaders were unanimous in the response. The G7 foreign ministers of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America, and the High Representative of the European Union are united in condemning the coup in Myanmar. Members of the United Nations Security Council likewise expressed deep concern at the declaration of the state of emergency in Myanmar and the arbitrary detention of members of the government. They called for the immediate release of all those detained. Democratic organizations across the globe have called for the continued support to the democratic transition in Myanmar. They stress the need to uphold democratic institutions and processes, refrain from violence, and fully respect human rights and the rule of law. They encourage the pursuit of dialogue and reconciliation in accordance with the will and interests of the people of Myanmar. As the world finds firm footing to the cause of Myanmar, the ASEAN member states, of which Myanmar is a member, have not conveyed a common voice, suggesting a divided response. The Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia expressed grave concern over the military takeover. Cambodia and Thailand branded it as an internal matter. Others, such as Vietnam, Laos, and Brunei, have yet to issue formal statements. ASEAN's consensus style of decision-making has been a double-edged sword. It has kept ASEAN members united in regional cooperation in spite of the vast diversity among them. But in hindsight, the price of unity is also steep. ASEAN member states are still learning how to cooperate with each other and continue to cope with their own security and historical issues, as well as territorial disputes. As the nation-states gained independence not too long ago, their embrace of the non-intervention principle seems to be a legitimate posture. But even though this has served ASEAN well over the past 5 decades, it may be timely for ASEAN today to reconcile long-held traditions with the new realities. And no other time is more fitting than what is happening in Myanmar now. But with positions still far apart, it is difficult to see a forthright and coercive response from ASEAN. As a regional forum, the ASEAN remain fixated to the principle of non-intervention, a shared understanding that domestic issues should be managed and resolved internally. In response, Brunei, as the 2021 ASEAN Chair, called for dialogue, reconciliation, and the return to normalcy in Myanmar, citing the ASEAN Charter's democratic principles. It does not, however, condemn the coup, call the violation of ASEAN Charter, nor demand for the release of the NLD leaders. This statement may sound muted, but it is comforting to hear the ASEAN Chair's reminder to uphold the fundamental principles of the ASEAN Charter. On this note, I laud the ASEAN Chairs by making an effort to align its position with international treaties on fundamental freedoms without contradicting ASEAN's long-standing principle of non-interference. Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues, ASEAN needs to be proactive if it wants to bring about desired national reconciliation in Myanmar, and consequently, the progress that ASEAN wants to see. There has been a growing international consensus on how ASEAN can drive this forward. First, ASEAN must negotiate with the military junta to dial down to a state of limited emergency. Immediately release all those detained. Refrain from the use of force against civilians and allow the functioning of government with specified conditions between the NLD and the military. This will allow the management of the COVID-19 pandemic and vaccination programs to carry on, as well as the development programs to continue. And second, there should be a longer-term ASEAN-led effort to put Myanmar back on the road to democratization with a negotiated roadmap, including new, free, and fair elections. As have been proven before, If there is a space for ASEAN leaders to be helpful, they will surely lend a hand to help Myanmar resolve this crisis. It is not in anyone's interest to see Myanmar's progress towards democracy and good governance slip away after so much progress have been achieved. A return to democracy will strengthen Myanmar's integration, not to the very least, within the Southeast Asia region where it belongs. Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues, I share the pain and burden that our friends in Pyeongdo, Ludo are going through right now. To see a transitioning democracy that spent 5 decades under military rule revert back under the control of the army is truly heartbreaking. In my years participating in the General Assembly of the ASEAN Interparliamentary Assembly, or IPA, as head of delegation of the House contingent, I felt a deep sense of camaraderie with our ASEAN parliamentarians. In these annual gatherings of kindred spirits and like-minded individuals, we have nurtured a community of ASEAN parliaments that fosters regional cooperation and solidarity. In October 2016, Myanmar hosted the 37th IPA General Assembly in Naypyidaw for the first time. At that time, the Myanmar Ludo was the youngest parliament among ASEAN parliaments. The Pyeongdo Ludo became a full-fledged member of the IPA only on its 32nd General Assembly in 2012 in Cambodia. It was the 6th IPA General Assembly that Myanmar has participated following the reopening of its parliament in 2011 after a long hiatus. At the 36th General Assembly in Malaysia, Myanmar was not able to accept the IPA presidency as the general elections were held that year. After the 2015 general elections, it successfully formed a new parliament and new government. It was a historic milestone for Myanmar to form the second Ludo, which would serve as the platform to form a civilian government for the first time after half a century. Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues, I saw members of the Myanmar Ludo, especially then Speaker Win Myint and Deputy Speaker Tikum Yat, beam with pride in hosting the 37th IPA General Assembly. Their relative inexperience did not deter them to hurdle the many challenges of organizing the event. By any measure, it was an opportunity for their young parliament to build its capacity and to expand interparliamentary relations. As a side note, I accepted the presidency of the 38th IPA General Assembly on behalf of the Philippine contingent, House of Representatives, and adopted the theme, IPA and ASEAN Partnering for Inclusive Change. As a legislator, Dong San Suu Kyi's keynote address struck a profound yet familiar chord. She said, "There is no honor greater than to be an elected representative of the people to discharge one's responsibilities for the people, to stand for the people against all kinds of oppression, and to be able to say at the end of one's term that you have truly done your constitutional duty." It is often said that one only appreciates something of value when one has lost and then regain it. Nothing comes close to the truth than the case of Myanmar for having regained democracy after having lost it for many years. As a Filipino, I believe representing the people at the national level is one of the highest and noblest aspirations that a person can have. It is also one that carries the highest level of responsibility. We are responsible for the well-being of our constituents who trusted us with their votes. Should we fail to improve their lives, we will have betrayed that trust. This sense of responsibility permeates everything we say and do. Thank you, Madam Speaker, my dear colleagues, and good afternoon.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Sarah Jane Ilago of Kabataan Party List for her manifestation.
The Honorable Sergeant Elider is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This youth representation stands in solidarity with the people's protest and the civil disobedience movement against the military coup in Myanmar. We, as a member of the ASEAN Parliamentarians of Human Rights, join all the diverse civil society organizations and non-government organizations in calling the Myanmar military to immediately release all those who are currently arbitrarily detained and restore the internet and all forms of communication and allow the parliament to resume and all the elected members of parliament to fulfill their mandate without impediment. We joined the call in demanding the United Nations and all the ASEAN leaders to immediately convene and take all the comprehensive action response, including targeted sanctions against the military and their partner businesses and enterprises. We also call on the social media companies, in particular Facebook, to suspend the accounts of military leaders that have used their platforms to spread disinformation, fear, and psychological violence. And finally, Madam Speaker, we laud the protesters, many of whom are from the ranks of health and factory workers, young people, and students, in calling for no more silence. The power of the people will prevail. Let us stand in solidarity with them in the fight for democracy. Again, Madam Speaker, this youth representation stands with Myanmar. Ang mga kabataan rin po sa kanilang paglulunsad ng mga espasyo ng dialogo sa mga student and youth leaders mula sa iba't ibang bahagi ng ASEAN at sa buong mundo na nakakaranas ng parehong repression at mga pagigipit sa mga critical and dissenting voices ay nararapat lamang na magpatuloy ng pagdadagdag ng kanilang boses para sa laban sa demokrasya. Maraming salamat, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Carlos Zarate of Bayan Muna Party List for his manifestation.
The Honorable Zarate is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, good afternoon to our colleagues. First, we would like to express our thanks to the Honorable Rani Abu for raising in this floor a very important and troubling issue that is now happening in our region, Madam Chair, the coup that ousted a democratically elected official in Myanmar. Again, Madam Chair, we express our solidarity with our fellow parliamentarians as well as the people of Myanmar in these trying times when military might is again showing its influence in that country. And we again reiterate the demands of several organizations, even parliaments in other jurisdictions, that the military should immediately and unconditionally release all the detained individuals, including elected officials of Myanmar, and return to Parliament to reach a peaceful resolution with all relevant parties. We also reiterate the call for the United Nations, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, for the Security Council to convene an emergency meeting to respond to the situation, including the sending of a delegation to Myanmar that will send a strong message that this kind of militarist action is not acceptable, and for the establishment of a global arms embargo and a referral of the situation in Myanmar to the International Criminal Court. We also re-echo our solidarity with the actions being taken now by the people of Myanmar, calling for denouncing this coup that ousted a democratically elected government. Again, thank you to the Honorable Abu. And again, Madam Chair, we express our solidarity not only to the members of Parliament of Myanmar, but as well as to the people of Myanmar. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, there being no other person or member who wishes to interpolate or make a manifestation, I move to refer the privileged speech of the Honorable Rani Abu, together with the manifestations of the Honorable Ilago and Honorable Zarate, to the Committee on Rules for appropriate action.
There's a motion. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the privileged speech is referred to the Committee on Rules.
Madam Speaker, I move that we close the privilege hour.
There's a motion to close the privilege hour. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we consider House Bill number 8552 under Committee Report number 720. May I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the measure? So move, Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the bill.
House Bill number 8552, an act granting Allied Broadcasting Center Incorporated a franchise to construct, install, operate, and maintain radio and television broadcasting stations in the Philippines.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, the parliamentary status of the bill is that we are in the period of sponsorship and debate. With that, I move that we recognize the author of House Bill number 8552, the Honorable Alfredo Garbin Jr. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Alfredo Garbin is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And allow me to adopt the explanatory note as part of my sponsorship speech. So move, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, we join the author and move that the explanatory note of the bill be made as the sponsorship speech.
Is there any objection? The motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, there being no members who wish to interpolate on the said bill, I move that we close the period of sponsorship and debate.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, I move that we open the period of amendments.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, there being no members who wish to introduce amendments, nor any committee amendments, I move that we close the period of amendments.
Is there any objection? The motion to close the period of amendments is approved.
Madam Speaker, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 8552. So move, Madam Speaker.
There is a motion to approve House Bill 8552. Those are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who are against, say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8552 is approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we consider House Bill number 8556 under Committee Report number 724, and may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the measure. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the bill.
House Bill number 8556, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Baycoms Broadcasting Corporation under Republic Act number 8718, entitled An Act Granting the Baycoms Broadcasting Corporation a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and television stations in the Philippines.
Madam Speaker, the parliamentary status of the bill is that we are in the period of sponsorship and debate. And with that, I move that we recognize the author, the Honorable Alfredo Garbin Jr., to deliver the sponsorship speech. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Alfredo Garbin is recognized.
Madam Speaker, Thank you very much. Allow me to adopt the explanatory note as part of my sponsorship speech. So move, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, we join the author and move that the explanatory note of the bill be made as the sponsorship speech.
Is there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, there being no members who wishes to interpolate on this matter, I move that we close the period of sponsorship and debate.
Is there any objection? The motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, I move that we open the period of amendments.
Is there any objection? The motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, there being no members wish to introduce amendments and there being no committee amendments, I move that we close the period of amendments.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The period of amendment is closed.
Madam Speaker, I move that we approve. I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 8556 under Committee Report number 724. So moved, Madam Speaker.
There's a motion to approve House Bill 8556 for second reading. Those who in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8556 is approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we consider House Bill number 8218 under Committee Report number 667. And I move, may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the measure. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the
House Bill number 8218, an act creating the Metro Bataan Development Authority, defining its powers and functions, and providing funds therefor.
Madam Speaker, our parliamentary status is that we are in the period of sponsorship and debate. And with that, I move that we recognize the author, the Honorable Joet Garcia, to deliver the sponsorship.
The Honorable Joet Garcia is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's my honor to sponsor House Bill number 8218, entitled An Act Creating the Metro Bataan Development Authority, defining its powers and functions and providing funds therefor. Let the records reflect that the sponsorship, that my explanatory note be the sponsorship message. Thank you, Madam
We join Madam Speaker and move that the explanatory note of the bill be made as the sponsorship speech. So move, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objection? The motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, there being no members who wish to interpolate on the said bill, I move that we close the period of sponsorship and debate.
There's a motion. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, there being no committee amendments, I move that we close the period of committee amendments.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the period of amendment is now closed.
Amendments, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that we open the period of individual amendment.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, to introduce an individual amendment, I move that we recognize the Honorable Geraldine Roman.
The Honorable Geraldine Roman is recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. With your indulgence, I would like to introduce the following amendment to House Bill 8218 on Section 3, page 2, line 5, between the words, quote, created, close quote, and 2, insert the phrase, open quote, as the implementing arm of the Council with purely administrative functions, close quote. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept, Madam Speaker.
We join the author, Madam Speaker, and accept the amendment.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, there being no other members who wish to introduce amendments, I move that we close the period of individual amendment.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 8218 as amended. So move, Madam Speaker.
There's a motion to approve House Bill 8218 on second reading. Those who are in favor say aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8218 is, as amended, is approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that for consideration on third reading of House Bill 8248. And for this purpose, may I request the Secretary General be directed, read the title and call the roll for nominal voting.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of House Bill 8248 and call the roll for nominal voting.
House Bill number 8248, an act establishing an on-site, in-city, near-city, or off-city local government resettlement program for informal settler families in accordance with the People's Plan and mandating the implementing local government unit jointly with the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development in cases of near-city or off-city resettlement to provide other basic services and livelihood components in favor of the recipient local government unit, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 7279 as amended, otherwise known as the Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992. Roll call of members in consideration of House Bill number 8248 on third reading. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barsaga, Baskug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondoc, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas.
Madam Speaker, my vote is no, and I would like to explain my vote later.
Bustos, Kabatbat, Cabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Cawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Maria Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Cojuangco, Colliantes, Crisologo, Cua, Cuaresma, Cueva, Culiamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael, D. Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rude Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Gulyas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marinio, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malanyaon, Uaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Juano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakhaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Savellano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherni, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victor, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikorat, Zarate Zubiri. Second call in consideration of House Bill number 8248 on third reading. Abante, Abaya, Abueg Saldivar, Acosta, Agaraw, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Omentado, Bagatsing, Banyas Nograles, Barzaga, Bautista, Bernos, Biazon, Biron, Bulut, Kabatbat, Cardema, Ko Elizaldi, Coangco, Dalipe, Daza, De Venecia, Defensor Michael, Duavit, D. Faustino Ino, Ebcas, Erice, Ermita Buhain, Fariñas Rude Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Fortun, Fuentebella, Garin Janet, Gatchalian, Gonzaga, Guya, Hataman, Haloshos, Javier, Co Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lagon, Makabagal Arroyo, Malapitan, Mangawang, Marinho, Marquez, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles Juan, Nunez Malanyaon, Uwaminal, Olivares, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Pacquiao Alberto, Panotes, Pichay, Pineda, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Romero, Sagarbaria, Saulug, Silverio, Singson, Suarez Aleta, C. Alvarado, Talyado, Tan Alaysa, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherni, Teves Arnolfo, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Valeriano, Vargas Alfonso, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, U.
With 200 members voting, in the affirmative, 6 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, House Bill number 8248 is hereby approved on third and final reading. The Honorable Arlene Brosas is recognized to explain her vote.
Maraming salamat, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, no ang boto ng kinatawang ito sa House Bill 8248. Sa kadahilanang, ang overarching naman itong pinagbabatayan ay ang UDHA o Urban Development Housing Act. No? Kung saan marami sa mga provision nito ay kinwestiyon at nananatiling hindi katanggap-tanggap sa mga urban poor sectors at mga maralita. Ibig sabihin, ang backdrop nito ay ang UDHA, no, na ilan lamang mga probisyon ang inamyenda. Although ang provision sa unang tingin namin ay para sa mga ISFs dahil ito ay nagsasabing pagpapatibay sa kahilingan for an on-site development para sa ISFs, ngunit sa panukalang batas lumalabas dalawang mayor na punto ang taliwas na nagbibigay pa ng mas maluwag na interpretasyon para sa lalong eviksyon at demolisyon sa ISFs. Ang tinutukoy po natin ay ang Section 23 kung saan may pag-aamyenda in quote, babasahin ko po, the association with the assistance of CSOs and concerned government agencies, including the National Anti-Poverty Commission, PICO, Presidential Commission for the Urban Poor, NHA, National Housing Authority, City or Municipal Social Welfare and Development Office, Social Housing Finance Corporation, and local government units shall agree on, develop, and implement the People's Plan. Dito pa lang po, ang tanong po natin dito ay, sino yung mag-a-agree on? Lahat ba ito? Sino magde-develop and implement? Lahat ba ito? Paano po kapag may isa na hindi pumayag? Paano po kapag may dalawa na hindi pumayag? So may mga ganun pong nakikita tayo na who will allow this? Next ay yung Section 26 kung saan in quote, sasabihin ko po, where demolition or eviction is allowed in the area occupied by the program beneficiaries or affected ISFs and on-site resettlement cannot be undertaken by reason thereof. So ibig sabihin po dito ay malinaw na nakalagay na where demolition or eviction is allowed in the area. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker. Kaya, Madam Speaker, ang boto ng kinatawang ito ay no dahil wala po itong pinag-iba sa UDHA at lalong hindi nito masusolusyonan ang talamak na demolition at displacement sa mga komunidad. Sa panukala pong ito, mawawala ng saysayang konsepto ng People's Plan dahil hindi naman maralitang mapagpasya kundi ang lokal na pamahalaan at ang National Housing Authority. Imbis na People's Plan, Relocation Plan ang bubuuin na magtitiyak na mararelocate ang mga na-demolish. Talibus ito sa panawagan ng maralita na on-site development dahil importante na malapit sila sa kanilang trabaho at kabuhayan. Wala pong maralita na gustong marelocate. Walang sino man ang gustong malayo sa kanyang kabuhayan. Walang sino man ang gustong mapalayas sa tirahan sa harap ng pandemya. Madam Speaker, naninindigan kami na hindi isolated ang maralita sa usapin ng konsultahan at pagpaplano sa kanilang paninirahan, lalo ngayon nakaliwat kanan ng demolisyon dahil sa build sa gitna ng pandemya. Dapat nga ay silang may final say sa kung saan sila maninirahan. Madam Speaker, walang pinag-iba ang mga probisyong ito sa nilalaman ng UDHA. Sa katunayan, mas napalabnaw pa nito ang ilan sa mga ilang probisyon. Sana'y makapagbigay ng alwan sa maralitang na-demolish. Kontra ang batas sa right to the city ng mga mahihirap dahil hinihikayat nito na umalis sila sa syudad at komunidad na kanilang kinabibilangan. Wala itong pinag-iba sa Balik Probinsya Program na panakip-butas sa lumulobang housing backlog sa Pilipinas. My dear colleagues, simple lang po ang panawagan ng maralita, dekalidad, abot kaya, pangmasang pabahay. Bilang mga mambabatas, tiyakin po natin na lahat ng pagkakataon ay mas mananaig ang karapatan ng bawat Pilipino na magkaroon ng tirahan at kabuhayan, lalo ngayong hindi humuhupa ang krisis na mas pinalala ng pandemya. Maraming salamat, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we recognize the gentleman from the 2nd District of Albay, Honorable Joey Sarte Salceda, for his manifestation.
The Honorable Joey Salceda is recognized. Majority Leader.
Honorable Salceda.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would just like to put on record the performance of the House panel during the recent bicameral conference committee on CREATE. I wish to congratulate the House leadership, our colleagues, for this once-in-a-lifetime achievement. Fiscal incentives reform is the work of 3 decades. I was a freshman congressman when I first filed one of the core sources of this reform, the Subsidy Council Act, which was patterned after Australia. It was then House Bill 109 when I filed it. I am now on my 8th term as an elected official. This reform is indeed long overdue. This will be the greatest economic reform of the post-EDSA year, second only to the Constitution and probably second only to the economic amendments to this Constitution. Removing the uncertainty will be like opening the floodgates to investment. We expect CREATE to generate at least 12 trillion in combined domestic and foreign investment over the next decade due to CREATE alone. $90 billion of that will be foreign direct investments. This will also result in 1.8 million jobs over the next 10 years. And if we combine it with RBH2 or the economic amendments to the Constitution, we can produce 8.4 million jobs. Obviously, because we're merely incentivizing what is already open, opening what is closed will generate more jobs. To give you a sense of what we have just done from a market analyst perspective, my previous job, I calculated the net present value of this infusion of capital savings into the private sector. Over the next 10 years, the net present value of CREATE is 7.2 trillion, or almost 46% of what the market cap of the Philippine Stock Exchange is right now. Once we are able to fully defeat the coronavirus, I expect a flurry of reinvestments and expansions even among our domestic corporations. We are also ending hesitation to invest in the Philippines. CREATE was first approved by the Cabinet in January 23, 2018, more than 3 years ago. It took us time to come up with a consensus version. However, we lost $18 billion in foregone foreign direct investments from 2018 to 2020 due to uncertainty, and the bleeding certainly must stop now. Fixing the incentive regime to make it more performance-based is also crucial. The current investment priorities plan covers some 70% of the entire GDP. While I am willing to give incentives, they must be linked with economic outcomes. Better jobs for our people, higher wages, more training, more research, more development, more business, more competitiveness. With CREATE, we are also lowering corporate income tax to bring it closer to the lowest in the ASEAN region's average. ASEAN has been the fastest growing economic region in the world. Our neighbors are our friends, but they also are our competitors. We must strive to keep up with them. While CREATE will result in 931 billion pesos in direct tax savings for businesses over 10 years and for gun revenues for the government, this is to front-load relief and cover the economic gap created or brought about by COVID-19. Remember that the hole that the COVID-19 has created is merely short-term. It amounts to almost 3.2 trillion. If we can paper it over with stimulus, we can actually restore our growth trajectory. But we are doing something more permanent. The final bicameral version was able to shave off 282 billion from the original revenue loss under another version. We found that some of the incentives were redundant, and I congratulate my colleagues in the leadership for the courage to say no to less useful provisions in favor of a more rational and more efficient incentive scheme. We also introduced several tax relief provisions in this bill for all sizes of businesses, especially small and medium ones. While I had my objections, I understand where the Senate came from on lowering the MCIT and the percentage taxes. We are also front-loading tax relief to cover lost business activity because of the COVID restrictions. With quick vaccine rollout, the chance is now stronger that businesses will devote tax savings to creating new jobs, especially if we get transportation right. That is why we have also introduced COVID-19 measures in this bill, including VAT and duty-free importation of vaccines. But as a caveat, because this is an investment law, therefore, those who can avail of VAT and duty-free importation must be registered business enterprises. At this point, allow me to thank the secretariats of both chambers for the very hard work that they have done over the past 2 months. The House panel had 17 pre-bicameral meetings, which tested the limits of our help, and which I am sure was just as taxing to our secretariat and staff. This CREATE is your bill as much as it is ours, the members of the Committee of Ways and Means. On behalf of the House panel, I congratulate the full body and the House leadership for this historic accomplishment. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The manifestation of the Honorable Joey Salceda is hereby noted. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for the consideration on third and final reading of House Bill 8558. For this purpose, I move that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the bill and hereby call for the roll for nominal voting.
House Bill 8558, an act providing for a mandatory immunization program, repealing for the purpose Republic Act Number 10152, otherwise known as the Mandatory Infants and Children Health Immunization Act of 2011. Roll call of members for consideration of House Bill Number 8558 on third reading. Honorable Representatives Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abeg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adjong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez France, Alvarez Hinaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas, Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barsaga, Baskug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biason, Billones, Biron, Bilidia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castrofans, Castro Fedenil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Maria Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Cuangco, Coliantes, Crisologo, Cuwa, Quaresma, Cueva, Culiamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Dasa, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Los Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael, D. Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Irigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goricheta, Guico, Gulias, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Co Elisa, Co Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lasatin, Diachon, Ligarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Makapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadato, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Mariño, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Nagaño, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malanyaon, Ominal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Juano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Pajernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Banotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radasa, Ramirez Sato, Remulia, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Sieda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Saveliano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Singsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Taliado, Tambunting, Tan Alaisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Shirney, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Chanco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Villago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Sarate, Subiri. Second call for consideration of House Bill number 8558 on third reading. Abaya, Abweg Saldivar, Acosta, Agaraw, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Aumentado, Bagatsing, Banyas Nograles, Barsaga, Bautista, Bernos, Biason, Biron, Bulot, Kabatbat, Cardema, Co. Elizalde, Cuangco, Dalipe, Dasa, De Venecio, Defensor Michael, Duavit, D. Faustino Ino, Ebcas, Erice, Ermita Buhain, Pariñas, Rudis Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando Flores, Fortun Fentebella, Garin Janet, Gatchalian Gonzaga, Guya, Hataman, Haloso, Xavier, Co. Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lagon, Macapagal, Arroyo, Malapitan, Mangawang, Marino, Marquez, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles, Juan, Nunez, Malañon, Ominal, Olivares, Ong Roni, Ordanes, Pacquiao Alberto, Panotes, Pichay, Pineda, Revilla, Robes, Romero, Zagarbaria, Saulog, Silverio, Singson, Suarez, Aleta, C. Alvarado, Tan Alaisa, Tan Samir, Tan Sharni, Tan Shirney, Teves Arnolfo, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Valeriano, Vargas Alfonso, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, U.
With 206 members voting in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and 1 abstention, House Bill number 8558 is hereby approved on third and final reading. May I now direct the Secretary General to call on the members who have 3 minutes each to explain their votes.
Honorable Gaite.
Salamat po, Madam Speaker, at bigyan ng pagkakataon na ipaliwanag ang aking botong yes. Bumoto ang kinatawang ito ng yes, ngunit may mga mahalagang reservasyon sa House Bill 8558 o Mandatory Immunization Program Act. Kaisa ang inyong lingkod ng ating mga health workers, health advocates, at mamamayan sa pagkilala sa halaga ng pagbabakuna, sa pag-iwas sa mga karamdaman at pagliligtas ng buhay ng mga mamamayan, lalo't-lalo na sa panahon ngayon ng pandemya. Ngunit may 4 na mga mahalagang punto na kailangang matugunan kung nais nating tunay na maging kapaki-pakinabang ang panukalang batas na ito para sa ating mga mamamayan. Una, dapat malinaw ang terminong quote-unquote mandatory. Bukod dito, kung gagawing mandatory at libre, dapat tiyaking sapat at available ang bakuna sa lahat ng pagamutan, lalo na sa mga health centers at barangay health stations at pampublikong ospital. Dapat na libre hindi lamang sa mga saklaw na edad, sa mga bata, kundi pati ang mga catch-up o yung tinatawag na batang lagpas na sa itinakdang edad. Pangalawa, dapat na matiyak na maaabot ng ating kababayan ang mga pasilidad at bakuna. Ilapit ang impormasyon at bakuna sa mga mamamayan. Mahalagang gawing regular nakalakaran ang house-to-house information at pagbabakuna, lalo na sa kalagayang bumababa ang antas ng pagbabakuna sa iba't ibang kadahilanan. Pangatlo, mahalaga ang pagtitiyak na sapat ang pondo sa ating mga pampublikong pagamutan at pasilidad para may sapat na gamit, storage, at gamot, kasama na rin ang bilang ng ating health workers. Pang-apat, dapat matiyak ang sapat na makinarya sa pagtugon sa adverse effects ng mga bakuna at libreng management ito. Dahil dito, yes, with reservations ang boto ng kinatawang ito. Salamat po, Madam Speaker. Salamat po sa lahat ng ating makasamahan sa Kongreso.
Deputy Speaker Bienvenido Abante.
Magandang hapon po, Madam Speaker, at sa ating mga honorable colleagues. I voted no to House Bill 8558, providing for a mandatory immunization program. Unang-una, we are a democratic country. Naniniwala po ako that everyone should be given a choice. If they would like to be vaccinated or not. Now, I know the good intention of the government, but we are not a socialist country. We are not a communist country. We are not a kingdom like in the Middle East, where it becomes mandatory for the OFWs to be given a vaccine. What about the freedom of our people to make a choice? Halimbawa, kung ito ay laban sa kanilang pananampalataya, laban sa kanilang kultura, laban sa kanilang ideolohiya. That's the reason why ako po ay bumoto ng no. Although I believe that the government has a good intention. But I think that a better intention should be giving the people the right to make a choice if they would like to be vaccinated or not. Yun lang po, Madam Speaker, Your Honors. Maraming salamat po.
Honorable Carlos Zarate.
Maraming salamat, Madam Speaker. Bumuboto ng yes ang kinatawang ito sa House Bill number 8558 o ang Mandatory Immunization Program Act. Subalit may ilang reserbasyon din ang kinatawang ito na lubhang mahalaga para sa ating mga mamamayan. Sumusuporta ang Bayan Muna at ang Makabayan Bloc sa panukalang batas na ito na nagmamandato na gawing libre ang pagbabakuna sa ating mga mamamayan. Ngunit, gaya ng nabanggit ng aking kasamahan kanina, dapat talagang linawin ang kahulugan ng mandatory. Nararapat na ang terminong ito, mandatory, ay kaakibat ng katiyakan ng availability ng bakuna sa mga health centers para sa ating mga mamamayan, lalo't higit ang ating mga mahihirap na mga mamamayan. Walang saysay ang mandatory kung magpapatuloy naman, Madam Speaker, ang kasalukuyang sitwasyon na karaniwang out of stock ang mga bakuna tulad ng para sa rotavirus, Japanese encephalitis, HPV at PCB. Kaya marami pa rin tayong mga kababayang Pilipino ang hindi nababakunahan. Kung gusto nating mabakunahan ang lahat ng ating mga kababayan, ay dapat masigurado ang availability ng mga bakuna at pati rin ang magbabakuna hanggang sa geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas or GIDAs. Problema rin ng mga health facility, lalo na sa GIDA areas, at ang pagpapa-accredit sa DOH at PhilHealth kung kaya hindi sila napupunduhan at hindi nila masiserbisyuhan ang ating mga kababayan. Dapat ding matugunan ang kawalan ng cold chain management sa malalayong lugar, lalo na ang mga barangay na wala pang kuryente. Isang malaking hakbang ang pagiging libre ng pagbabakuna na nakaprograma sa DOH at hindi nakatali sa maanumalyang PhilHealth system. Maganda na maisama ang catch-up vaccines na libreng ibibigay sa ating mga mamamayan. Mas mainam din, Madam Speaker, na maging bahay-bahay ang pagbabakuna at pagpapaalala ng schedule, lalong-lalo na sa malalayong lugar, para sa mas malapit ito sa ating mga kababayan. Dapat ding bigyang diin ang mas lalong mapalakas ang vaccine education and information dissemination na magiging susi sa pagpapataas ng immunization coverage ng ating bansa. Ito ay dapat naaabot sa ating mga kababayan at hindi nahihinto at sa pagpapalabas sa telebisyon at social media. Dapat ma-institutionalize rin ang panukalang batas na ito ang National Immunization Technical and Advisory Group o NITAG. Ngunit sa tingin ng kinatawan na ito, maganda rin ang pag-institutionalize ng National Adverse Events Following Immunization Committee or NAEFIC na magbabantay sa mga adverse effects following immunization na mahalaga lalo na para sa pagbabakuna ng mga bata. Muli, Madam Speaker, bumuboto ng yes with reservations ang kinatawang ito sa House Bill number 8558 or Mandatory Immunization Program Act of 2020. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for the consideration of House Bill, for third reading House Bill 8559. For this purpose, I may request the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting. So move, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of House Bill 8559 and call the roll for nominal voting.
House Bill 8559, an act establishing a parent effectiveness development service program in every city and municipality and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members for consideration of House Bill 8559 on third reading. Honorable Representatives Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg, Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adjong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatching, Balindong, Banyas, Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barsaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biason, Billones, Biron, Bolidia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabutsan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Cawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fatinil, Cayetano, Alan Peter, Cayetano, Maria Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co, Angelica, Co, Elizalde, Cuangco, Coliantes, Quisologo, Cuwa, Quaresma, Cueva, Culiamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, De Maporo Abdullah, De Maporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael, D. Ian, Ebka, Secleo, Ilago, Enverga, Irice, Rigel, Ermita, Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas, Ria, Fariñas, Rudy, Cesar, Fernando, Ferrer, Juliet, Ferrer, Luis, Flores, Fortuno, Frasco, Fetebelia, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia, Jose Enrique, Garcia, Pablo Jan, Garcia, Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptari, Gonzales Sandro, Coricheta, Guico, Gulias, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Halosos, Javier Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lesatin, Liachon, Ligarda, Lim, Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal, Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadato, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Mariño, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad, Nagaño, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Nunez, Malañaon, Ominal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Roni, Ordanes, Ortega, Juano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Pachernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimental, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radasa, Ramirez, Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Sieda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Saveliano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntaisi, Alvarado, Taduran, Taliado, Tambunting, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Shirney, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Chanco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chutorti, Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Villago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Sarate Zubiri. Second call of members for consideration of House Bill number 8559. Honorable Representatives Abaya, Abweg Saldivar, Acosta, Agaraw, Alvarez, Pantaleon, Amatong, Umentado, Bagatsing, Banyas Nograles, Barsaga, Bautista, Bernos, Biason, Biron, Bulot, Kabatbat, Cardema, Co Elizalde, Cuangco, Dalipe, Daza, De Venecia, Defensor Michael, Wavit, D. Faustino Ino, Ebcas, Rice, Ermita Buhain, Fariñas, Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando Flores, Fortune, Fentebella, Garin, Janet, Gatchalian, Gonzaga, Guya, Taman, Alasos, Xavier, Co, Wilton, Konghun, Labadlabad, Lagon, Makapagal, Arroyo, Malapitan, Mangawang, Marino, Marquez, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles, Juan, Nunez, Malanyaon, Ominal, Olivares, Ongroni, Ordanes, Pacquiao, Alberto, Panotes, Pichay, Pineda, Revilla, Robes, Romero, Sagarbaria, Saulog, Silverio, Singson, Suarez, Aleta, C. Alvarado, Tan Alaysa, Tan Samir, Tan Shirney, Teves, Arnolfo, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Valeriano, Vargas Alfonso, Veloso, Villa, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, U.
With 210 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, House Bill number 8559 is hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for the consideration on third and final reading, House Bill 5777. For this purpose, I may request the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill and thereafter to call for the nominal voting. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the House Bill and hereby call the roll for nominal voting.
House Bill number 5777, an act taxing persons engaged in Philippine offshore gaming operations, amending for the purpose sections 25 and adding a new section 150-C of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended. Roll call of members in consideration of House Bill number 5777 on third reading. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abweg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Omentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barsaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Cabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Maria Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Co Wangco, Colyantes, Crisologo, Cua, Quaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Dazat, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael, D. Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Goed, Gomark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Gullas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Co Elisa, Co Wilton, Kunghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacsonoel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Losotan, Makapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malanaon, Uwaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Uwano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano,
Madam
Palma.
Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker,
Majority
my vote
Leader.
is no, Madam Speaker, and I reserve my right to explain my vote later. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Sieda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Saveliano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Aduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alaisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherni, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarater Zubiri. Second call, in consideration of House Bill Number 5777 on third reading. Abaya, Abueg Saldivar, Acosta, Agaraw, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Omentado, Bagatsing, Bautista, Bernos, Biazon, Biron, Bulut, Cardema, Co Elizaldi, Co Wangco, Dalipe, Daza, De Venecia, Defensor Michael, Duavit, Di Faustino Ino, Ebcas, Erice, Ermita Buhain, Fariñas, Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Fortun, Garin Janet, Gatchalian, Gonzaga, Guya, Hataman, Haloshos, Javier, Co Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lagon, Makapagal Arroyo, Malapitan, Mangawang, Marino, Marquez, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles Juan, Nunez Malanaon, Uwaminal, Olivares, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Pacquiao Alberto, Panotes, Pichay, Pineda, Revilla, Robes, Romero, Sagarbaria, Saulug, Silverio, Singson, Suarez Saleta, C. Alvarado, Tan Alaisa, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherni, Teves Arnolfo, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Valeriano, Vargas Alfonso, Veloso, Villa, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, U.
with 198 members voting in the affirmative, 13 in the negative, and 2 abstentions, House Bill number 5777 is hereby approved on third and final reading. May I now direct the Secretary General to call on the members who have 3 minutes to explain their vote.
The Honorable Arlene Brosas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, hindi pagbubuwis ang mapagpasya para gawing katanggap-tanggap ang sugal ng mga dayuhan sa ating bayan. Ang panukalang pagbubuwis sa POGO sa forma ng 5% gaming tax at 25% income tax sa foreign POGO workers ay tila konsuelo de POGO lamang. Malinaw ang tindig namin sa Gabriela Women's Party noon pa man. We must reject the hosting of POGOs in the country in general, as it is not linked to any productive sector in the economy and are not in line with any of our national development goals. Worse, it opens a new vista for sexual abuse and gender-based violence in our country. It has been well established in hearings related to POGOs that this industry has given rise to the proliferation of non-conventional forms of human trafficking and prostitution. Taxing POGOs will in fact have the effect of recognizing and institutionalizing them in the country, instead of the general demand to ban them outright. Kaya malinaw na sa halip na habulin sila sa buwis, dapat tuluyang ihinto ang kanilang operasyon dito sa ating bayan. This administration could have secured ample tax revenues to fund critical health and social interventions, if only it did not embrace the hefty corporate tax cuts worth at least 133 billion under the soon-to-be-signed CREATE Law or Train 2. For these reasons, Madam Speaker, we vote no to House Bill 5777.
The Honorable Minority Leader Joseph Caraps Paduano.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Magandang hapon po sa lahat ng mga kasamaan dito sa Kongreso. Madam Speaker, currently, POGOs are required to pay 5% franchise tax to PAGCOR. This is, Madam Speaker, in lieu of any other local or national tax. Madam Speaker, BIR Revenue Memorandum Circular 102-17 currently governs the procedure in the collection of this franchise tax. Admittedly, Madam Speaker, nothing in our internal revenue code provides for a tax regime to an entity which was non-existent at the time. Hence, Madam Speaker, my support for the original intention of this bill. Well, in fact, Madam Speaker, this representation even proposed an amendment to Deputy Minority Leader Kit Belmonte. And I really appreciate the efforts and taking the cudgels for this representation, Madam Chair, last week. Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, I have decided to vote for no for the reason that the substitute bill was not the one debated upon during the period of interpellation. Significant changes were introduced to the bill which were not discussed during the period of debates. And furthermore, Madam Speaker, special economic zones with their own charter like Aurora, Zamboanga, and Cagayan already have a tax provisions in their charters. They should have been excluded from the coverage of this proposed revenue measure, Madam Speaker. And by the way, Madam Speaker, this bill should have been referred also to the Committee on Trade and Industry because it touches, Madam Speaker, the charter of the three economic zones that these representations have mentioned. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I have no recourse but to register my resounding no vote for this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, dear colleagues. Good afternoon.
The Honorable Eufemia Kafemia Kulyamat.
Maraming salamat, Madam Chair. No, ang boto ng representasyong ito sa House Bill number 5777 or Act Taxing Persons Engaged in Philippine Offshore Gaming Operation or POGO. Simula pa lamang ay tutol ang representasyong ito sa pagpapahintulot ng mga POGO sa ating bansa. Lalo't illegal nga ang mga pasugalang ito sa China, sa mismong bansang pinanggagalingan ito. Kaakibat ng pagdami ng mga POGO ang maraming anti-sosyal na aktibidad sa bansa. Kriminalidad, prostitution, trafficking, at mga kahina-hinalang transaksyon mula 2017 hanggang 2019 ayon sa report mismo ng Anti-Money Laundering Council. Nandyan din ang negatibong epekto nito sa kalikasan. Matatandaan noong 2019 na ibalita na ang pagsira ng Island Cove Wildlife Sanctuary, isang mangrove habitat sa Cavite, para gawing POGO hub. Ginakamkam ang ating mga isla sa West Philippine Sea, tinataboy ang ating mga mangingisda at ngayon gagawing pasugalan ang ating bansa. Hindi katumbas ang anumang halaga ng buwis sa negatibong dulot ng dumadaming POGO sa bansa. Ito ay paglilihiti mo lamang sa kanilang operasyon na dapat ay tutulan. Dahil dito, no ang boto ng representasyong ito sa House Bill number 5777.
The Honorable Carlos Isagani Zarate.
Maraming salamat, Madam Speaker. Ang bayan muna po ay bumoboto ng no sa pagpasa ng House Bill number 5777 na naglalayong magpataw ng dagdag na buwis sa operasyon ng Philippine Offshore Gaming Gambling Operators. Ang mga POGO ay nabuo upang maging legal loophole para makapagsugal ang mga mamamayan ng mga bansa kung saan ito ay illegal, in particular ang bansang China. Ating tinututulan ang balak na pagtanggap ng ating pamahalaan sa mga illegal na pasugalan sa ibang bansa na kadalasan ay nauugnay na rin sa iba pang kriminal at antisosyal na mga activities. Sa paglitaw ng mga POGO ay dumadami rin ang mga napabalitang kaso ng prostitusyon, ang paglaganap ng illegal na droga at ang pagpapasok ng mga illegal na mga manggagawa at marami pang iba. Hindi rin nakapagbigay ng dagdag na trabaho sa ating mga mamamayang Pilipino ang mga POGO bukod sa mga service jobs tulad ng mga driver, tagapagluto at iba pa. At hindi natutunghayan sa usaping ito ng panukalang batas na ito ay emblematic sa baluktot na prioridad ng kasalukuyang administrasyon pagdating sa pagpapataw ng buwis. Malinaw sa ating konstitusyon, Madam Speaker, na ang pagbubuwis ay dapat na progresibo, na kung saan dapat ay kung sino ang mas malaki ang kinikita ay dapat siyang higit pang binubuwisan ng ating pamahalaan. Sabay na itinutulak nito ang Create Bill na kung saan balak pang bawasan ng buwis ang mga dambuhalang korporasyon. Kung nais ng Kongreso na ito na makapangalap ng karagdagang kita para sa pagpapatakbo sa ating bayan, dapat ating unahin ang pagpataw nito sa kumikita ng malaki at hindi lamang sa paghahanap ng mga maliliit at halos iligal na mga buwis katulad nitong buwis na ipapataw natin sa Pogo. Dahil po sa mga kadahilanang ito, Madam Speaker, muli nirerehistro ng kinatawang ito ang kanyang botong no sa panukalang batas, House Bill number 577. Maraming salamat, Madam Speaker. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat.
The Honorable Deputy Speaker Bienvenido Abante.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, your colleague, my dear colleagues. I fully support the explanation of those that have already explained their votes. And I have always been against any form of gambling, whether they be legal or illegal. Let me read to you a research on gambling. For example, when you think of the effects of gambling, certain things spring to mind, like financial worries, relationship difficulties, and other serious issues. How about the emotional stress from gambling? Gambling is all about emotions. There is the fun of winning, the enjoyment of socializing, or the familiar routine of some downtime on the pokies. But there are other emotions too, like stress, regret, guilt, which most people feel at some point, even if only briefly. It's easy to forget about this side of gambling, but these feelings often build up even if you're not gambling very much or very often. Now, ano ba ang sabi dito? Harm from gambling is not just about losing money. Gambling can affect self-esteem, relationships, physical and mental health, work performances, and social life. It can harm not only the person who gambles but also family, friends, workplaces, and communities. Ito po, research ito. Hindi ko alam kung bakit mababayaran po ba ng ating taxes ang magiging danger at harm na magagawa dito sa ating mga kababayan, sa ating mga pamilya. Is it enough to be able to raise taxes on that? Madam Speaker, andyan na naman tayo. Pinapayagan na naman nating matawa ang jablo sa atin kung naniniwala tayo may demonyo. At tinahayaan na naman nating mamayagpag ang mga Chinese dito sa ating bansa. Tinanggihan na nga ng China ang Pogo. Tapos, tayo naman dito, imbis na ipagbawal natin yan, atin pang bibigyan ng buwis. Pinibigyan natin ng tinatawag na official support ang Pogo, ang offshore gambling. Madam Speaker, Your Honors. Sana po naman, sa ganyan mga bagay, ang iniisip na lamang natin kung saan tayo makakakuha ng pera. We are not thinking about the families. We're not thinking about the harm, the effects, the emotional stress that gambling can bring. Kaya nga ako po, tulad ng ibang kasamahan ko dyan, I am emphatically voting no to House Bill number 5777. Thank you po, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we direct the Secretary General to immediately transmit all House Bill approved on third reading.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, all bills is approved on third reading and be transmitted to the Senate.
Madam Speaker, We are in receipt of the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 8145 and Senate Bill number 1877, extending and enhancing the implementation of the lifeline rate by amending Republic Act number 9136, otherwise known as the EPIRA. I move that we recommit the said conference committee report to the Bicameral Conference Committee. So move, Madam Speaker.
There's a motion to recommit the said conference committee report to the Bicameral Conference Committee. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, 1 minute suspension.
Session suspended. Session resumed.
Madam Speaker,
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we now proceed with the additional reference of business. And may I ask the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill, resolution, also communication and committee reports. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the titles, bills, resolutions, and committee reports.
Additional reference of business, bills on first reading. House Bill number 8633, providing for the establishment of a hospital in all state universities and colleges with medical programs by Representative Crisologo.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 8634, amending the secrecy of bank deposits law by Representative Kua.
To the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries.
House Bill number 8635, integrating hospice and palliative care into the Philippine healthcare system by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 8636, providing for the identification, assessment, and education of children with autism spectrum disorder by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Welfare of Children.
House Bill number 8637, strengthening and institutionalizing the Barangay Primary Health Care Program by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 8638, mandating the labeling of alcoholic beverages by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 8639, mandating and institutionalizing rollover data allocation scheme by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Information and Communications Technology.
House Bill number 8640, establishing a national agency for forensic science by Representative Robes.
To the Committee on Science and Technology.
House Bill number 8641, converting the junction Laben-Mapurao Flora Apayao Road into a national road by Representative Vargas Alfonso.
To the Committee on Public Order and Safety.
House Bill number 8642, creating the Department of Technical Education and Skills Development by Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Government Reorganization, the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill number 8643, amending RA number 11332, or the mandatory reporting of notifiable diseases and health events of Public Health Concern Act to include falsification of any forms of novel coronavirus test result by Representative Gatchalian.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 8644, providing for transparent alternative manual automation election system for Philippine elections by Representatives Zarate, Gaite, Culyamat, Castro Franz, Brosas, and Elago.
To the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms.
House Bill number 8645, converting the 21.927 kilometer Barangay Barangiran, Sitio Dulao, Barangay Upper Dado Access Road to declared tourism destination in Alamada, Cotabato into a national road by Representative Sakdalan.
To the Committee on Public Works and Highways.
House Bill number 8646, establishing the Western Dinagat Islands Protected Landscape and Seascape, Gas and Malinaw Inlet Natural Park as protected areas under the expanded National Integrated Protected Areas System Act by Representatives Dagook, De Jesus, Ebcas, and Guya.
To the Committee on Natural Resources.
House Bill number 8647, establishing watersheds in Dinagat Islands into watershed reservations by Representatives Dagook, De Jesus, Ebcas, and Guya.
To the Committee on Natural Resources.
House Bill number 8648, expediting the purchase and administration of vaccines against COVID-2019 by providing exemptions to compliance with the Government Procurement Reform Act by Representatives Velasco, Romualdez Ferdinand, and Paduano.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
House Bill number 8649, expediting the purchase and administration of vaccines against COVID-2019 by exempting LGUs from compliance with the Government Procurement Reform Act by Representative Kua.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Resolutions. House Resolution 1545, expressing the sense of the House to stop the red tagging fora of National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict and urging the CHED and DepEd to immediately issue a directive to stop the deadly red tagging campaign in educational institutions by Representative Elago.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education and the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Resolution 1546, directing the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation to inquire on the lack of foresight and planning for the scheduling of exams conducted by the PRC by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1547, directing the Committee on Transportation to inquire on the implementation of the Child Safety in Motor Vehicles Act by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1548, congratulating and commending Ernest Jan U. Obena for winning the gold medal in pole vault at the International Statute Fest at Berlin, Germany, by Representative Tolentino.
To the Committee on Youth and Sports Development.
House Resolution 1549, urging the Special Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts to inquire on the issue of counterfeit garments appropriating weave patterns from the Cordillera coming into the local markets from abroad, by Representative Legarda.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1550, expressing profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the House on the demise of Honorable Senator John Henry Renner, Sonny Osmeña, by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1551, expressing profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the House on the demise of Honorable Senator Victor San Andres Ziga, by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1552, condemning the erroneous portrayals of Igorots in textbooks, learning modules, and instructional materials, and directing the DepEd to make a thorough review of all textbooks, learning modules, and instructional materials, and correct any text which depict in a discriminatory way Igorots and indigenous peoples, by Representatives Mangawang, Dalog, Yap Eric, Chungalao, and Bulot.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1553, directing the appropriate House Committee to inquire on the inappropriate, erroneous, and discriminatory learning materials from the DepEd, by Representative Yap Eric.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1554, directing the House Committees on Basic Education and Culture and Indigenous Cultural Communities and Indigenous Peoples to inquire on the alleged discriminatory and erroneous statements against Igorots in self-learning modules distributed by the DepEd, by Representative Go Mark.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1555, urging the House to inquire on the illegal adoption schemes facilitated by social media accounts on Facebook, by Representative Vargas.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1556, directing the House through the Committee on Agriculture and Food to inquire on the rising food prices, importation, and the neglect of the industry of agriculture in the Philippines, by Representatives Zarate, Gaite, Culiamat, Castro Franz, Brosas, and Elago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1557, expressing the sense of the House to condemn and hold accountable the NTF-ELCAC and its spokesperson, Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade Jr.'s red tagging of 38 colleges and universities, by Representative Elago.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Resolution 1558, urging the Committees on Public Accounts to inquire on the release and utilization of appropriations authorized under the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, by Representatives Garin Sharon, Salceda, Vergara, De Venecia, Baronda, Swansing Horacio, Swansing Estrelita, Kimbo, Albano, Dimaporo, Khalid, Sangcopan, Sarmiento, Rodriguez, Garbin, Singson Mihan, Benitez, Padiernos, Barbers, Abu, Hernandez, Co Angelica, Savellano, Maceda, Ongroni, Bautista, Goriseta, Tiangco, Defensor Lawrence, Suntay, Biron, Estrella, Aragones, Bagatsing, De Losa Montalia, and Momo.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1559, urging DFA Secretary Teodoro L. Locsin Jr. to declare Vice Consul Bartos Wozniacko and his unidentified boss as persona non grata for their abhorrent and reprehensibly discriminatory statements that were hurled against Filipinos, by Representative De Losa Montalia.
To the Committee on Foreign Affairs.
House Resolution 1560, expressing the profound condolences of the House to the family of the Honorable Victor San Andres Siga former senator during the 8th Congress and Assemblyman of the Province of Albay from 1984 to 1986 by Representatives Velasco, Romualdez Ferdinand, and Paduano.
To the Committee on Rules, Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to nominate and elect the following members. As Vice Chairperson of the Committee on Ways and Means, the Honorable Arnie Fentavella, Vice Honorable Genaro Alvarez Jr. As Vice Chairperson of the Committee on Agriculture and Food, the Honorable Jose Bong Teves Jr. As members of the Special Committee on North Luzon Growth Quadrangle, the Honorable Pablo Ortega, Honorable Samantha Luis Vargas Alfonso, Honorable Luisa Lloren Quaresma, the Honorable Juni Cua, the Honorable Elias Bulut Jr., the Honorable Solomon Chungalao, the Honorable Maximo Dalog Jr., the Honorable Rudy Cesar Farinas, the Honorable Ron Salo, and the Honorable Alan T. So moved, Madam Speaker.
There is a motion. Are there any objections? The Chair hears none. The following members are hereby elected.
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend session until February 9, Tuesday, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So moved, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objection? The Chair hears none. Session is suspended until February 9 at 3 p.m.